In Marvel, I practiced the method of swallowing stars and amazed the Avengers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, Transaction with the Dragon. You want me to help you get rid of the soul-devouring beast? Zuemo looked at the huge dragon in front of him. This is the first time he has seen the dragon, after living in Taro village for such a long time. However, both of them can sense each other's existence point through mental power. Zuemo can naturally see each other's every move point in the past few months. The dragon has been staying at the bottom of the water. It has been almost impossible to see the dragon move for several days. Every time it moves, it is just to eat, and then it will lie back to the original place. He sighed in his heart more than once. It makes sense that this thing lives long. If humans can be like it, eat and sleep all day, sleep and eat, and move around, without any worries, I'm afraid they can live more than 10 years. That's right. The dragon shook its huge head and answered, I can feel that the other party's strength is still gradually increasing. At most, in a dozen years, the other party will get out of trouble, but I can't wait until then. Can't wait. Emo's face moved. It's your life coming to an end. It shouldn't be, he muttered in his heart. Point as far as he knew, the plot of Shanghai should be more than 10 years later. At that time, Shenlong didn't seem to have any problems, and he fought back and forth with the Soul Devourer. Although he didn't beat the Soul Devourer in the end, he didn't look like him life was about to end. No, you misunderstood. Shenlong hurriedly explained. It's because I will give birth to the next generation in about half a year. In the next 10 years, I will enter a weak state. If the Soul Devourer breaks the seal during that period, hearing this, Zuemo finally understood. It turned out that Shenlong was afraid that, after giving birth to offspring and entering a weak period, he would not be able to deal with the Soul Devourer, so he wanted to completely solve this hidden danger before that point. Zuemo didn't ask the other party why he chose such a stupid thing. After all, the other party couldn't have failed to notice it when he took action last time. Seeing Zuemo's thoughtful expression, Shenlong showed a trace of anxiety on his face. To be fair, guarding the seal is the responsibility of their Shenlong and Taro village for generations. With the opponent's strength, even if the Soul Devourer breaks the seal, the impact on the opponent will be minimal. He can hide somewhere and not be affected. He has no need to risk his life to fight the Soul Devourer for this. But the Shenlong also knows that it and the villagers of Taro village alone cannot deal with the Soul Devourer. Only with Zuemo's help can they hope to kill the Soul Devourer. Thinking of this, the Shenlong hesitated for a moment, as if he had made up his mind. If you agree to help us deal with the Soul Devourer, you can choose one of my descendants to be your partner. Hearing this, Zuemo was stunned. Point as a Chinese, no one can resist the temptation of becoming a dragon knight. Point. Although this dragon is not that dragon. Point, but it is enough to arouse Zuemo's interest. Point. Even if the other party does not pay, he will agree to the other party's request. Point. In his impression, the soul devouring beast seemed to be quite suitable as a mount. In terms of strength alone, it was even better than the dragon. Moreover, under certain conditions, its strength increased faster. As long as it devoured the soul, its strength would increase rapidly. Point. Of course, the only drawback was that it looked a bit ferocious. But this was not a problem. On the contrary, in some cases, this thing had a stronger deterrent power than the dragon, which was like a beast. Okay. Zuemo nodded. Since the dragon had already spoken, he would not refuse. Point. At this time. Point. A space door opened next to it, and Wanda walked out of it. Point. During this period, I knew that Zuemo stayed here. Point. Wanda would return to Taro village after class every day. Point. Wanda, who came out of the space door, saw the dragon floating in the air at a glance. She looked at the dragon, and then carefully came to Zuemo's side. Dear, what's going on? Zuemo had naturally told her about the dragon living in the lake before. Seeing the dragon at this time, she was not too surprised. Point. She was just a little confused. Why did the dragon, which had been staying at the bottom of the lake, come out today, and it seemed to be related to Zuemo. Zuemo heard the words and narrated the matter to her. Wanda spoke without hesitation. Count me in. Compared with Zuemo, she has lived here for a much longer time, and she has fallen in love with this place thoroughly. Naturally, she would not let this place be destroyed by the soul-devouring beast. Don't be too nervous. Seeing Wanda's look of defending the village to the death, Zuemo smiled and comforted her. According to their current strength, the soul-devouring beast can't make any waves at all. After all, relying on the 10-ring Shanky alone, he can solve this soul-devouring beast king. Now his strength is more than 100 times that of Shanky. Thinking of this, Zuemo glanced at his attribute panel. Name, Zuemo. Age, 23. Power, 3 billion tons. Speed, 8 million kilometers/s. Telekinesis, 3 billion tons. Special ability, freeze space points, 20 million points. Level, star level 9, gene level, 100 times. Clone, space-time beast god. In terms of strength alone, he is already tens of millions of times stronger than Shanky. If he still can't catch a soul-devouring beast king, the other party can't be sealed in this small village. At this time, under the leadership of Guangbo, all the villagers of Taro village came together. The dragon was so big, floating in the air, and naturally it was seen by the people in the village. For the people in Taro village, the dragon is their belief point. Since the dragon appeared, they naturally came to worship. Seeing Guangbo coming over, Zuemo greeted him and described what the dragon said. Okay. Guangbo nodded. We in Taro village have lived here for generations and suffered from the invasion of the soul-devouring beast. Since there is a chance, we must get rid of it completely. Let's prepare tonight and fight it to the death tomorrow. After saying that, he turned around and went back to prepare for battle. No, don't bother. We can solve it today. Zuemo held out his hand to stop the other party. Also, it's only the three of us, Shenlong and my wife, who can handle this matter. You don't need to do it. If it weren't for the fact that there were still many soul-eating beasts inside, even Wanda and Shenlong wouldn't be needed. How can that be? When Guangbo heard this, he retorted, it's okay today. There's nothing to prepare anyway. After saying that, he turned to the people behind him without hesitation and began to assign tasks. Zuemo sighed when he saw this and stopped trying to stop them. He raised his hand to check the time on his watch. It was a little after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He stopped hesitating and took Wanda with him and jumped up and sat on Shenlong's head. If they could make a quick decision, they could still catch up with dinner. Shenlong understood and flew towards the direction of the sealed portal. Chapter 227, Capturing the Soul-Devouring Beast Alive. The portal that seals the soul-eating beast is across the lake. In less than half a minute, Shenlong landed on the platform beside the door halfway up the mountain. Zuemo and Wanda jumped down from the dragon's head. You guys stay here and take care of those fish that slipped through the net. After hearing this, Wanda obediently walked aside, and naturally she would not refuse Zuemo's instructions. However, the Shenlong on the side was stunned for a moment, with a look of confusion on his huge face. etc. Resolve. The fish that slipped through the net, shouldn't I be the one to deal with the soul-eating beast king? Shenlong said doubtfully. Judging from what happened last time, the opponent is very good at group attacks. Tens of thousands of soul-eating beasts can all be killed by the opponent with one strike. The best way is naturally to let it entangle the soul-eating beast king. Let Zuemo deal with the smaller soul-eating beast first, and then work together to deal with the soul-eating beast king. Why do you listen to the other party now? The other party wants to solve the other party together. Thinking of this, it quickly opened its mouth to explain. You may not understand the strength of the soul-eating beast king. It is not as easy to deal with as those small soul-eating beasts. If I try my best, I can only entangle the opponent, and I'm not sure how long I can entangle the opponent. You won't be able to stand up to it, and those little soul-eating beasts on your own. When Zuemo heard this, he smiled and spoke. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to lose if you try. If I can't stand it, you can do it again. As he spoke, he had already reached the huge portal. When the Shenlong in the distance heard the words, he didn't stop him. However, he concentrated his attention. If he was injured by the soul-eating beast king, before he could stop Zuemo, it would probably lead to a complete collapse. Zuemo raised his head and looked at the door in front of him. He raised his right hand and tapped one finger on the rock that resembled dragon scales easily. When the Shenlong behind saw this scene, a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. I have no idea what the other person is doing. Crack. Almost instantly, an imperceptible sound came from the position where Zuemo's fingers were in contact with the mountain wall. Then a series of cracks, centered on this point, spread towards the surroundings, and soon covered the rocky mountain wall. Boom. Under Shenlong's incredible gaze, the rock portal that sealed the soul-eating beast burst open. Countless rocks fell from mid-air. How is this possible? Even the dragon who has lived for thousands of years couldn't help but exclaimed. This seal is aimed at the inside. It is naturally countless times easier to destroy it from the outside. However, no matter how easy it is, it has not reached the point where it will break apart with just a light touch of a finger. Wanda on the other side turned her head and glanced at Shenlong, who exclaimed, but she was not surprised by this. As early as when she reached the peak of the God of War and adapted to the island, she had already seen Zuemo's exaggerated physical strength. With over 900 tons of strength, she was like a toy in the opponent's hands. Zuemo ignored their expressions the moment the rock sealing the portal shattered. His figure floated directly up. The Kyanji disc split into countless small swords, which were distributed in front of him. The mental power probed into the seal point. Before he could investigate the situation inside, the huge figure of the soul-eating beast king had already rushed out from inside. Its size is several times larger than the divine dragon. It looks like a giant western dragon, with 3 huge horns on its head and 8 or 9 tentacle-like tails. With a slight shake of its wings, the soul-eating beast king moves towards the distance. Escape everywhere. It can confuse Zhu Wenwu in the seal, and it can naturally detect everything in the outside world. It had already seen Zuemo's strength last time. At this time, the other party came here with Shenlong and took the initiative to break the seal. It was obvious that the comer was evil. In addition, it has been sealed here for a long time and has no way to absorb energy. Even if the souls brought back to it by the soul-eating beasts, its strength has not returned to its peak state. If not, it wouldn't be trapped here by this seal that has lost most of its energy. Right now, it was obviously not the time to fight head-on with Shenlong and the others. As long as you give it enough time to devour souls in the human world and wait until it returns to its peak state, it won't be easy to deal with the two of them. With this idea in mind, the soul-eating beast king tried to flap his wings vigorously again. When Zuemo saw the other party coming out, he couldn't help but want to run away, and his figure flashed. Already appeared behind the soul-eating beast. Holding one of the soul-eating beast's tails with both hands, he gently exerted force with his body. The body of the soul-eating beast flapped its wings and gave a sudden meal. Then, with the huge drag on the tail, it hit the mountain wall hard. Boom. The entire mountain peak vibrated several times with this movement, and a deep crater was created on the mountain wall by its huge body. The soul-eating beast was also shaken to pieces under this heavy blow. Give it a flick. Zuemo threw the soul-eating beast's body on the platform at the entrance of the cave. At this time, countless small soul-eating beasts more than 1 meter long swarmed out of the cave, forming a dense cluster. When Zuemo saw this, his eyes lit up. It seems that there is a lot of inventory in the cave, and there is a lot of points income. Turning around, he saw Wanda and Shenlong trying to take action. Zuemo quickly spoke to stop them. Don't move, let me do it, he shouted at Wanda and the others, and with a slight wave of his right hand, a flame shot out from his hand, staining the small swords. Then, under the control of Zuemo's mind, the small swords sank into the group of soul-devouring beasts in an instant. At the entrance of the cave, countless fireballs appeared and disappeared repeatedly, as if fireworks were set off. Using a small part of his mind to control the small swords, Zuemo stepped in front of the soul-devouring beast on the ground. At this time, the soul-devouring beast was shaking its big head, trying to stand up. He noticed Zuemo walking over from the corner of his eye. Roar. The soul-devouring beast roared at him. As soon as the roar was halfway out, the soul-devouring beast found that Zuemo was already standing in the air in front of its head, holding a black giant hammer that was almost the same size as its head. On the giant hammer, a light blue flame was burning. Bang! Before it could react, the huge hammer in Zuemo's hand had already hit its head. Under Zuemo's huge power, the Soul Devourer had no room to struggle, and fainted with its eyes rolled over. Looking at the Soul Devourer lying motionless on the ground, Zuemo's heart jumped. Will it be killed by a hammer? Thinking of this, he quickly put away the hammer transformed from the Black Death sword in his hand, and walked in front of the Soul Devourer. Seeing that the other party was still breathing weakly, he breathed a sigh of relief. After putting it into the slave space, Zuemo turned his head and looked at the location of the cave entrance. Chapter 228 Mount Shocked Dragon. Across the lake point, the villagers, led by Guangbo, were holding their weapons and concentrating on watching the battle on the opposite side point. When the huge Soul Devourer flew out of the cave, they almost felt nervous at the same time. Originally, when they saw the huge size of the dragon, the villagers were a little excited, but the moment they saw the size of the Soul Devourer, all of them were stunned. They were all sweating for the dragon. After all, the gap between the two was obvious. However, when they saw the dragon stay still, and the Soul Devourer hit the mountain wall hard, these people were all confused. Dad, what's going on? A young man standing behind Guangbo looked at the situation on the other side of the lake, and asked in a low voice. Due to the distance, the Soul Devourer and the dragon, who are so large, can be seen clearly, but Zuemo and his figures are so small that they are less than 1/10 of an ant. These people can't see clearly at all. Guangbo heard this and glared at him. It's already so late, and you're still concerned about these insignificant things. Why haven't those people who moved the crossbows come back yet? As the captain, why don't you go and see what's going on? If you delay, I'll throw you into the lake to feed the fish. No, Dad, those people just left for less than half a minute. How could they be so fast? And how can this be called an insignificant matter? You going or not? Seeing that the other party still wanted to explain, Guangbo angrily shouted and stretched out his hand to hit him on the head. No, I'll go now. The young man ran away with a wronged look on his face. Seeing his figure disappear from his sight, Guangbo breathed a sigh of relief and squinted his eyes again to look at the other side. As for why the Soul Devouring Beast King looked at the mountain wall, he didn't understand it either, so naturally he had no way to answer the other party. But although he couldn't solve the other party's problem, he could solve the person who asked the question. Until he saw the huge hammer hitting the Soul Devouring Beast King's head. Guangbo suddenly reacted. It was Zuemo. When that happened before, he also guessed that it was Zuemo's doing. After all, besides the dragon, there were only Zuemo and his wife. But he never believed that Zuemo, who was like an ant in comparison, could overwhelm the Soul Devourer in terms of strength. Then they saw the Soul Devourer being hit on the ground by a hammer and disappeared in a moment. In this situation, even a fool could see that the Soul Devourer should have been destroyed. People cheered excitedly. At this time, on the ground at the entrance of the cave, a thick layer of black ash had accumulated. And the Soul Devourer continued to fly out from inside, turning into ash after a flash of light. Zuemo was concentrating on controlling the flying swords for some reason. His mental power could not penetrate into the cave. This process lasted for a full half an hour. The ash on the ground had accumulated several meters high. Zuemo couldn't remember how many Soul Devouring beasts he had killed. He only knew that in just half an hour, he had gained more than 50 million points. As he dealt with another batch of Soul Devouring beasts that flew out, the air at the entrance of the cave had become empty, with only the small swords decomposed from the 1000 machine disc floating quietly in the air. No more. After a long period of repetition, Zuemo, whose mind was already somewhat numb, reacted after a moment. After waiting for another half a minute, seeing that there were really no more Soul Devouring beasts flying out, Zuemo was convinced that the Soul Devouring beasts had indeed been cleared out. Seeing this, Wanda and Shenlong also stepped forward. Is this over? Shenlong looked at the ashes on the ground, his eyes full of surprise. At this moment, it was a little suspicious of the dragon's birth. Adhering to the mission of the dragon clan, it stayed here for thousands of years and could not leave for a moment, just to prevent the Soul Devouring beast from escaping. At this moment, thousands of years of perseverance were resolved in less than an hour. It even felt at a certain moment that its perseverance for thousands of years was meaningless. Why? Do you think it's too easy and not challenging? Zuemo looked at the other party's doubt about Longsheng and asked with a smile, how about letting you have some sense of participation? After saying that, he stretched out his hand and waved gently, and the figure of the Soul Devourer reappeared on the platform point at this time. The other party has become lively again. He roared at the dragon. How could he not be angry in his heart after being imprisoned for thousands of years, especially for this old opponent who had been guarding outside for thousands of years? If it hadn't been blocked by the other party, it would have broken the seal long ago. Seeing the Soul Devourer reappear, the dragon's eyes changed. Without time to figure out what was going on, he hurriedly shouted at Zuemo, "Be careful." The location where the Soul Devourer appeared happened to be not far behind Zuemo. "Be quiet." Zuemo did not panic at all and shouted to the Soul Devourer behind him. When the Soul Devourer heard his scolding, it instantly lay on the ground like a docile cat and did not move. Seeing this scene, the dragon, who was about to rush up, stopped directly. This is looking at Zuemo, who slowly walked to the head of the Soul Devourer and sat on it. The dragon had some guesses in his mind. "Yes, this thing is my mount now," Zuemo answered. After that, he turned his head and looked at Wanda beside him. "Do you want to come up and try it?" "Okay." Wanda also reacted after hearing this, chuckled and walked up and sat down in Zuemo's arms. As Zuemo's heart moved, the Soul Devourer turned and flew into the cave behind. Although there were no Soul Devourers flying out of the cave, he felt that he still had to check it out in case a few were missed and the other party escaped. Maybe if it was allowed to develop, it would become the second Soul Devourer King. And the reason why the Soul Devourer King was summoned was also because of this. After all, those Soul Devourers were created by the Soul Devourer King under him, and it naturally had a way to sense and control the other party. After entering the cave, the scene inside instantly appeared in Zuemo's eyes. The space in the cave was very large, and the cave was slanting downward. On the surrounding rock walls, there were some symbols similar to Chinese talismans carved, and these symbols were spread all over every corner of the cave. It was because of these symbols that the soul devouring beasts could not leave by breaking through the rock wall. Soon, after flying for several thousand meters, they came to the innermost part of the cave. At this time, there was no light at this location, and perhaps because of the symbols around, Zuemo's telekinesis could still be used to control objects. But he could not feel the scene in the dark. With a wave of his hand, a huge ball of light appeared in the cave. The most basic spell in light magic, illumination. After Zuemo saw the scene in the cave clearly through the ball of light, he took a breath. Chapter 229, The Dragon that obtained the blood of the beast god. On the ground in the cave, a soul devourer that was more than 10 times bigger than the soul devourer under him was being shrunk to the ground by chains. The huge soul devourer had its eyes closed tightly, lying on the ground as if dead. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Zuemo's eyes showed doubt. Could it be that the one nailed to the ground was the soul devourer king, and the one under him was a fake? Zuemo, who didn't know the reason, immediately communicated with the soul devourer under him through the contract. It wasn't until a few minutes later that he understood. He immediately ordered the Soul Devourer King to land next to the corpse on the ground. He also understood the relationship between the two. To be precise, neither of them was a complete Soul Devourer King. When the Soul Devourer King was sealed, they were afraid that the Soul Devourer King would escape, so they not only sealed it in the cave, but also used special chains to restrict it directly to the formation on the ground. To be precise, it was actually equivalent to having two seals. The first layer is the chains that bind it, and the second layer is the cave with runes painted on the stone wall. This kind of chain is specially designed for the soul devourer. It can perfectly restrain it. With its ability, there is no way to break free from the chains. After trying countless ways and failing to break free, the soul devourer directly found another way, and found an unusual way. It is to rely on his original innate ability. Relying on energy, create a new individual. In this way, it successfully transferred its consciousness to this new body. In other words, its current body carries the soul of the soul devourer. and the body on the ground is the original body of the Soul Devourer. Thinking of this, Zuemo and Wanda got down from the Soul Devourer and walked to the corpse on the ground. "Dear, is this the Soul Devourer?" Wanda looked at it for a few times and asked. "That's right." After explaining it to the other party and asking her to stand aside, Zuemo walked to the chain point holding a thick-backed sword transformed from the Black Death sword in his hand. He chopped down at the chain. Scandium. The sword chopped on the chain, leaving only a shallow mark. So hard. Zuemo was also a little surprised when he saw this. Although he just used a small part of his strength, he felt that this force was enough to break Thor's hammer, but he couldn't even cut this chain point. This thing is also a treasure. He made this judgment in an instant. This degree of solidity has far exceeded metals such as Uru alloy. At that moment, he increased his strength tenfold, and in a few seconds, he cut off the chain tied to the body of the Soul Devouring Beast King and put it all into the Star Tower afterwards. Zuemo waved to the Soul Devouring Beast King on the side point. The other party got his signal, roared excitedly, and pounced on the body on the ground. As he got closer and closer to the body of the Soul Devouring Beast King flying in the air began to gradually disappear and turned into a colorful energy. Finally, after the whole body turned into energy, it directly sank into the corpse of the Soul Devouring Beast King. After this energy entered the corpse, the deflated parts of the corpse began to swell up again. After a while, the eyes of this body suddenly opened. With the force of its claws, it stood up directly from the ground. After an excited roar, the Soul Devouring Beast King flapped its wings and flew up, circling in the huge cave for several circles. From the previous communication point, Zuemo learned that the Soul Devouring Beast King could be reintegrated into the original body. In this way, its strength would be restored to nearly half of its peak strength. It is dozens of times the strength in this clone. It can easily increase its strength so much, so Zuemo naturally released the opponent's body directly. After the Soul Devouring Beast was excited, it landed on the ground again. Under its call, 4 or 5 small Soul Devouring Beasts hidden in the cave also flew out and were killed by Zuemo with a wave of his hand. Although this thing is controlled by the Soul Devouring Beast King, but they also have their own consciousness. Now that they are weak, they will still be controlled by the Soul Devouring Beast King, but after their strength increases, it is not certain. It is better to destroy them directly to avoid future troubles. When Zuemo rode on the back of the dragon and returned to Taro village, he told them that the Soul Devouring Beast had been solved. The whole village was in an excited roar. The most excited ones were the young people. Although they could go out occasionally before, Taro village stipulated that they could not stay in the outside world. This is also to prevent the seal from being unguarded in the future. After all, as long as they are young, there is no one who does not yearn for the outside world. Now that the Soul Devouring Beast has been eliminated, their restrictions will naturally no longer exist. The eyes looking at Zuemo one by one were full of gratitude. These eyes made Zuemo feel a little uncomfortable. At that moment, Zuemo sat on the dragon and came to the bamboo building in a secluded place. "I will send the children over after they are born." After the dragon put the 2 down, he looked at Zuemo deeply and then dived into the lake. "Wait, Zuemo called out to the other party. Then he shot a drop of the beast god's blood directly into the body of the dragon. From the contact, the genetic level of the dragon's body is no more than 8 or 9 times that of humans. This drop of the beast god's blood should be able to significantly improve its strength. It will also be of great benefit to the baby dragon to be born next. After the beast god's blood entered the dragon's body. The dragon's eyes lit up. Waves of energy overflowed from the beast god's blood crazily, improving its body. Compared to humans, the beast god's blood has a much greater effect on beasts like dragons. It can not only improve the genetic level, but also purify the blood and improve strength. Feeling the huge changes in the body. The dragon's body fell directly, floating on the water, quickly absorbing the beast god's blood in its body. Zuemo smiled at this and turned to look at Wanda on the side. "What do you want to eat tonight?" he knew very well the process of the beast god's blood transforming the genetic level, and he was afraid that he would have to wait until tomorrow morning to finish. Early the next morning when the villagers of Taro village were still asleep, a dragon roar that revealed excitement came from the direction of Zuemo's bamboo house. Zuemo was naturally awakened by this sound. He gently moved Wanda away from him. Wanda just muttered something in a daze and fell asleep again. I was too tired last night. Walk to the platform. It's not a good habit to disturb others' sleep early in the morning. I'm sorry, I was too excited for a while and couldn't help it. The dragon quickly apologized. At this time, it looked at Zuemo with a look of deep gratitude. After a night, the dragon felt that its strength had increased by nearly 1-fold, and even its size had increased by a large circle. The body, that was originally nearly 100 meters long, had grown to 150 or 160 meters. If she was a little worried about handing the child to Zuemo at the beginning, now she is eager to handle the baby. Dragons to Zuemo's hands. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230. Loki arrives. Tony is desperate. The next period of life. Entering a peaceful and leisurely time again. This day. Death Island. Boss, this is what happened this week. Shirley, who is in charge of intelligence on the island, handed a piece of sorted intelligence to Zuemo. The shield base in the suburbs of Washington was attacked by terrorists. Zuemo saw a page in the information and his eyes moved. That's right, Shirley nodded and then opened several videos on the computer in front of her. This is what I found from their internal database. The surveillance video inside the base at that time. In order to facilitate the acquisition of information, Zuemo exchanged an intelligent optical brain from the system as the central processor of the information department. With the help of the ultra-high performance of this optical brain and the computing power that exceeds Jarvis, Shirley is now the world's #1 hacker. There is almost nothing she can't do on the internet. Even entering the SHIELD database to search for information is easy. Zuemo's eyes fell on the monitor after seeing a man with medium-length hair and narrow cheeks in the picture. Zuemo smiled. Loki? Loki in the picture was holding a metal scepter about 1 meter long in his hand, followed by 2 people running away frantically. Zuemo took a look at the scepter in his hand. If nothing unexpected happened, this was the Mind Scepter, and the gem on the top of the scepter was naturally the Mind Gem. And the 2 people following him, Zuemo naturally recognized them. The older one was Dr. Shavig, who had met in New Mexico. That was Jane and Daisy's mentor. And the other short-haired middle-aged man in black was naturally the only AD Hawkeye in the Avengers. It's the plot of Avengers 1 about to begin. Obviously, this scene in the video was Loki going to SHIELD to take the space gem. When did this happen? 3 days ago, Shirley answered without hesitation. Continue to look at the picture. A few seconds later a figure chased up from behind. After seeing this figure, Zuemo was stunned. This figure was none other than Hill, who had had in-depth exchanges with him. After more than a year, Hill's current strength seems to be almost the same as Captain America. From the opponent's running speed, it can be seen that the opponent's strength should have reached the level of a high-level warrior. Loki and his men in front did not take Hill seriously after seeing him. As Loki waved his hand gently, Hawkeye Barton stepped forward to stop him. But they obviously underestimated Hill. Barton was knocked to the ground by Hill after just a face-to-face encounter. After Hill's hand, he rushed towards Dr. Shavig, who was carrying a box on the side. Her goal, of course, was to take the gem back. However, when they jumped up, the figures of Loki and the other 2 disappeared directly. Obviously, everything before was an illusion cast by Loki. Hill saw this and chased directly forward. In a moment, the surveillance screen stopped after a shake, and it was obvious that the underground base had collapsed. After watching the video, Zuemo let out a long sigh. Since Loki has returned, he naturally brought back the coordinates of the Chitauri. This is what I have been waiting for during this period of time. The first calamity of the 9 Tribulations secret book always feels stuck at the most critical position, and there is no way to break through. The 8 immortal crystals exchanged before, the beast god has absorbed them all, and his strength has only reached the 9th level of the star level. If he wants to break through to the universe level, he is naturally far away. Now he is in urgent need of points. The Chitoriami came just in time. Thinking of this, Zuemo spoke to Shirley. Can you find their location? I am already doing it, but it may take some time. Shirley spread her hands helplessly. After all, not all places have cameras. Okay, try your best to pay attention to the movements around the world in the next 2 days. If there is any special news, notify me as soon as possible. New York. Under the Stark building. Zuemo looked up at the roof of the building. To activate the space gem, huge energy is needed. And there are not many places that can provide this kind of energy. The Stark building in front of us is an excellent place. After all, the energy supply system here uses the arc reactor that Tony has researched before. In the original plot, Loki also chose this place to open the space door. The reason why he asked Shirley to pay attention to the news from all over the world is that he cannot determine whether the plot will develop according to the original situation. As the mental power spread towards the top of the building. Zuemo's eyes moved. It seems that he came at the right time. At this time, on the top floor of the Stark building, if your friends are busy dealing with you, they don't have time to interfere with what I do. Loki walked at Tony with a relaxed look. Use the mind scepter to gently touch Tony's chest. Ding. A metal collision sounded. The smug smile on Loki's face was only half revealed, and he was stunned. This mind staff is a divine weapon given to him by the Chitta people. With just a tap, he can make the other party his slave and obey his orders. He had tried it on Hawkeye and Dr. Shavik before. But what is going on now? Why is it ineffective? Thinking of this, Loki tried it on Tony's chest again. Ding. After another crisp sound, Tony on the opposite side took a sip of the wine in his hand. So, what do you want to do? Seeing that the other party still looked normal, Loki raised the mind staff in his hand and carefully examined it in front of his eyes. Impossible. This is unscientific. As a genius in mechanical physics who made a circuit board at the age of 4 and an engine at the age of 6, I have to remind you that any perfect device with some performance problems is very positive. Oh, before Tony finished speaking, Loki, who was embarrassed and angry, had already thrown him out. Tony fell to the ground, put his hand on a gem pendant on his chest, and spoke softly. Karina, start. Shh. Before he finished speaking, Loki had already stepped forward and made a silent gesture. Tony could not make any sound, and he felt that he had lost control of his body. Having seen Tony's ability after wearing the armor before, how could Loki give him a chance to put on the armor again? Loki stretched out his hand to strangle Tony's neck. From now on, I will be the master of this world, and you all must surrender to me. After saying that, Loki threw Tony down from the upstairs without any hesitation. Tony tried his best to break free from the restraints and start the armor, but obviously, everything was in vain. As an ordinary person, Tony had no way to break the opponent's magic. Looking at the ground getting closer and closer, Tony showed a look of despair on his face. Wait. When Tony was less than 50 meters from the ground, he saw a figure clearly below him. The figure was looking up at him, with 8 neat teeth showing and a smile. Who else could it be but Zuemo? Chapter 231 Mark 7th. Evil Spirit Armor. After confirming that it was Zuemo below, Tony breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, he only had one thought in his mind. I can be saved. Really? Almost instantly, Tony felt a huge pulling force on his clothes, and his falling speed gradually slowed down. When it reached the ground, it almost stopped. After a stagger, Tony landed safely. This is a shortcoming of the battle armor. No matter how strong you are, after putting on the battle armor, you will return to a fragile ordinary person. After taking off the battle armor, Tony, who was always tough talking, surprisingly did not refute Zuemo this time. Still breathing heavily, what Zuemo said was correct. Just now, I almost became a meatloaf smeared with ketchup. Well, you saved me again. That's right. There is no way to repay a life-saving favor. How about you break up with Little Pepper and make things easier for the two of us? Zoo. Emo joked. "You're dreaming." Tony punched his arm, but a smile appeared on his face. He naturally knew that Zuemo was just joking with him. Just to relieve his nervousness, he looked up with an angry look. "I swear I'm going to stuff that kid's head into his ass." After saying that, he turned to look at Zuemo aside. "Just in time. Let you see the results of my research over the past year. Kerina, activate the evil spirit armor." "Okay, sir." A voice without any emotion came from his chest. In a moment, a black object flew out from the top of the building and flew in the direction of Tony. When the armor was almost in front of Tony, it began to unfold gradually. Following a combination of sounds, a pure black armor of unknown material was put on Tony's body. Apart from the color, the armor is not much different from the Mark VI. However, this is not yet complete. Zuemo felt a powerful evil energy overflowing from Tony's chest and spreading towards the armor on his body. In a moment, this energy penetrated directly into the armor. As the penetration of energy ended, Zuemo could feel black energy flowing on the armor in a specific trajectory from time to time. Seeing this scene, Zuemo was also a little surprised. It was obvious that this evil spirit energy was obviously related to the evil spirit that he had given to him before. Tony wouldn't have his technology tree crooked because of this, but he didn't pay too much attention. According to Tony's IQ point, if we develop in this direction, we might eventually be able to create something amazing. In Zuemo's surprised eyes, the evil spirit energy in Tony's body surged, and he and the armor outside his body turned into a virtual state in an instant. The figure was like an evil spirit, flying towards the top of the building. Holy shit. Seeing this scene, Zuemo was really shocked. What the hell is this? It seems to be able to transform people and armor into ghost states in some way. Seeing this, Zuemo followed the other party and appeared on the roof of the building. At this time, Tony was already entangled with Loki. To be precise, Loki was beaten unilaterally. All his attacks on Tony's body were like nothing, penetrating through the opponent's body, but the fist Tony punched towards him would turn into a physical state before touching him. This armor seems to be able to switch between illusion and reality at will according to Tony's wishes. Just half a minute point, Loki had already received more than a dozen punches. A purple color also began to appear on his face. It seemed that he was stunned. Only then did Loki realize that physical attacks were ineffective against Tony, and he happened to be a mage. At this time, Zuemo poured himself a glass of wine and was sitting behind the bar, looking here with interest. However, with the existence of magic, the two of them could not see Zuemo in the corner. Loki didn't hesitate and shot a ball of energy from the top of the scepter, flying in the direction of Tony. After a sound, Tony's body was knocked out. The virtual state is immune to physical attacks, but it is obviously not immune to energy attacks. Tony stood up from the ground. His body returned to its physical form. Tony raised his hand and fired a few cannonballs at Loki. Boom. After several explosions, Loki's body fell heavily to the ground. At this time, Zuemo's eyes moved. Look upward. At this time, on the roof of Stark Tower, under the control of Dr. Shavig, a huge beam of light shot out into the sky and submerged into a position in the air. With the continuous injection of energy at this position, a beam of light, the space door is slowly opening. Is it finally starting? A smile appeared on Zuemo's face. He turned to look at Loki. His mission has been completed, and it's time to go back and serve his sentence. Thinking of this, Zuemo appeared in front of Loki. It you. Seeing Zuemo standing in front, Loki let out an exclamation. The last plan against Saul was ruined by Zuemo. Naturally, he still had fresh memories of Zuemo. Besides, he was also deeply impressed by the opponent's ability to kill the destroyer in one strike. Tony, leave this to me. Zuemo shouted towards Tony. Hearing this, Tony glanced at the light beam outside, turned around and flew towards the roof of the building outside, intending to stop the operation of the instrument. Seeing Tony leave, he turned around and appeared at the door in a flash. Eldest nephew, where are you going? As his words fell, Loki's figure lying on the ground slowly disappeared, and there was a fluctuation in the void in front of Zuemo, and Loki's figure emerged. Can you see through my magic? Loki had a look of shock on his face. No, wait, what did you just call me? Nephew. He quickly came to his senses. Of course, your father and I are brothers now. Logically speaking, you should call me uncle. Zuemo said with a smile on his face. What nonsense are you talking about? Hearing Zuemo's words, Loki showed an angry look on his face. In his opinion, the other party was obviously making fun of him. I am a god. Why am I worthy of you, a mortal? After speaking, Loki rushed towards Zuemo and tapped Zuemo's chest with the scepter in his hand. Zuemo did not stop the other party's actions. Instead, he let the spiritual scepter touch his chest. Clang. After a sound, Zuemo still looked at Loki with a smile. Seeing that the other party seemed to have a mocking look on his face, Loki wanted to smash the head of the Kirita leader with the scepter in his hand. Damn, I controlled 4 people in total, and 2 of them failed. What kind of crap did they give themselves? Zuemo showed 8 neat teeth to Loki, and then suddenly raised his right foot. With a boom, Loki was embedded in the wall behind. Zuemo stepped forward and pulled the opponent out of the wall. Call uncle, then hand over the scepter in your hand, and I can let you go. Chapter 230 To the Chirita army arrives. Finally, Zuemo took the mind scepter and turned away, and Loki's face behind him showed a look of humiliation. Standing on the apron outside the room, Zuemo looked up at the sky. Energy was still continuously sinking into the void, and it seemed that it would take some time for the space door to open. At this time, an idea came to Zuemo's mind. His face was happy. With a wave of his hand, a space door opened in front of him, and he walked in without hesitation. In the starry sky, on a dilapidated planet. In midair, Zuemo walked out of the space door. The planet in front of him was the location where the star-devouring vine absorbed energy and evolved. Looking around, the surface of the planet has become bumpy, like the moon, with bottomless pits everywhere. It seems that it sensed Zuemo's arrival. Under the ground of the planet, the body of the star-devouring vine began to shrink rapidly. In just a few seconds, a vine more than 1 meter long emerged from the ground below, flew in front of Zuemo, and wrapped around his arm. Several small branches rubbed his arm a few times. A burst of joy came from the consciousness of the star-eating vine. Zuemo reached out and touched the vine of the star-eating vine. Then, with his thoughts, the other party directly sank into Zuemo's body. Looking at the planet below, Zuemo casually controlled a boulder with a diameter of more than 10 meters, flew high into the sky, and then smashed it down. After hitting the ground collapsed instantly. In this collapse, like a domino effect, the entire surface of the planet began to sink one after another. The interior of the previous planet had almost been hollowed out by the star-eating vine, and the reason why there was no large-scale collapse was just a slight induction. Under Zuemo's eyes, the entire planet began to fall apart. Countless smoke and dust, like a nebula, floated in this area. The scene in New York. A huge flying object is floating in the air. It is the airspace carrier of S.H.I.E.L.D. At this time, inside the airspace carrier, Nick Fury stood on the platform of the main control room, looking at the beam of light that penetrated the sky and the earth in the picture displayed in front of him. Hill, what did Professor X say? The X-Men have rushed towards New York and will arrive near Stark Tower in about 10 minutes. Hill stood up and came behind him and said, "How are the captain and the others?" Tony and Natasha are trying to turn off the equipment, but it seems to have no effect. After listening to this, Nick Fury's face showed a solemn look. After thinking for a moment, he looked up at Hill. Contact Zuemo. Hearing this, Hill hesitated for a moment and then spoke. After refusing to join the special operations team, the other party seems to no longer want to get involved with us. Now the other party only agrees to help us once as a reward for the last incident. If there are things that cannot be solved after this action, I'm afraid there will be no way to ask the other party again. This is of course a deliberate reminder. During this period, she has been in contact with Zuemo, and the two had in-depth exchanges last week. If she speaks up, Zuemo is likely to take action, but public is public. Private is private, and she does not want to use their relationship as an excuse to let Zuemo help S.H.I.E.L.D. Even the only chance of S.H.I.E.L.D., she does not want to use it now and involve Zuemo. After all, this time they may be facing aliens. and the danger is obviously extraordinary. But unfortunately, SHIELD is not her decision. Everything still depends on Nick Fury's instructions. After hearing Hill's words, Nick Fury looked at him meaningfully. As Nick Fury, who likes to leave countless backhands for everything, he naturally knew the relationship between Hill and Zumo. That was why he gave this matter to Hill. If, by chance, the other party was willing to help Hill, this opportunity would be saved. But Hill's words just now were very clear. She would not let Zumo take action because of their personal relationship. Contact him in the name of SHIELD. Nick Fury, who knew Hill's character very well, knew that the other party would not change his decision, so he could only say this at the moment. New York. On the roof of a certain building. Zumo walked out of the space gate. As soon as he came out, his eyes moved, and he looked at the roof of another building next to him. A figure in a yellow robe was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and the iconic bald head made Zumo instantly determine the other party's identity. Naturally, it was Master Guyi. The other party pinched the seal in his hand, and the eye of Agamotto on his chest had opened, revealing the time gem inside. Zumo flashed and appeared in front of Guyi. Coincidentally, Guyi also slowly opened his eyes at this time. Master Guyi, long time no see. Guyi saw Zumo appeared in front of him. A smile appeared on his face, and he stood up from the ground. It's been a long time indeed. Ah. You here for this thing in the sky too? I was, but now it seems that I'm not needed at all. Obviously, the other party had just used the time stone to spy on what would happen today. At this time. Zumo's cell phone rang. Seeing Hill displayed above, Zumo's expression changed, and he answered the phone. SHIELD wants you to help resist the invasion of those alien races. Hill's voice was a little low. Obviously, Nick Fury insisted on letting Zumo get involved, and he didn't agree with it. Got it? Zumo said with a smile. Tell Director Fury for me that, if he can pay 2 aerospace carriers, I can guarantee that I can solve this matter alone. Anyway, I was planning to solve these walking points of the Chirita people by myself. Now I can collect 2 aerospace carriers from SHIELD, so why not do it? Anyway, these aerospace carriers, if they stay in their hands, will eventually be destroyed by the Hydra lurking in SHIELD. So it's better to give them to myself. Stop it. This is not the time to joke, Hill hurriedly advised. She naturally knew that Zumo was very strong. After all, the Hulk in an angry state could be beaten back by him with one blow, but this time they were facing an unknown army of aliens. Don't worry, I'm sure of what I said. Hearing Zumo's insistence, Hill hesitated for a moment and then passed the words to Nick Fury. After hearing this, Nick Fury's expression changed. Being suspicious by nature, he naturally thought that the other party might have some way to stop the cosmic cube. While he was hesitating, the end of the energy column in the sky seemed to have accumulated enough energy. A space gate slowly opened. In almost the blink of an eye, it had expanded to a diameter of hundreds of meters, and it was still expanding. At the same time, countless Chirita armies, like locusts, drove their craft like speedboats and poured out of the space gate. Chapter 233 Star-Eating Vine Blooms. Nick Fury is hesitating. Seeing this scene on the monitor in front of him, the expression on his face immediately changed. Okay, I agree. Nick Fury hurriedly shouted to Hill. When it came to the situation before him, no matter whether Zumo could solve it or not, he would not lose. If it is not solved, he does not need to pay anything at all, and if the other party can solve it, he can say that he will make a lot of money by paying 2 aerospace aircraft carriers. After all, in the face of alien invasion, 2 aerospace aircraft carriers mean nothing. Those big shots can give up even the entire New York City. After hearing the other party's agreement, Zumo hung up the phone in his hand, said hello to Master Guyi, and quickly flew towards the space gate in the sky. He saw Tony and Sol rushing upwards. If one of them is killed, one of them will be lost. At this time, on the ground beneath Stark Tower, Steve, Natasha and Barton, who was out of control, looked at the scene in the sky. Their expressions changed. Oh my god, Captain America let out an exclamation. What to do now? Barton looked at a Leviathan beast that was as big as a building, and flew out of the space door. With a look of despair in his eyes, he really wanted to curse. Now point, this damn guy's going to be beaten on the head. Evacuate the people around here first. In this case, we can only do our best and protect as many people as we can. Natasha looked at the scene in the sky and said something. Then the black god suit slowly appeared on the surface of her body, forming an all-black armor. Captain America and Hawkeye on the side saw this scene in front of them. Wow, Natasha, what is this? It's much cooler than Tony's suit. Hawkeye circled around Natasha and let out an exclamation. Among these people, he and Natasha have been working together for the longest time, and they are relatively familiar with each other. For the past 2 years, Natasha seemed to be on drugs, and her strength had undergone earth-shaking changes. He doubted whether the current American team was enough to defeat the opponent with one hand. Now this kind of powerful looking armor appears on the opponent. He would be lying if he said he was not envious in his heart. But he also roughly knew the reason why the other party had such a huge change, and he had nothing to do about it. Who could let someone find a good boyfriend? When Natasha heard this, she turned to look at him. You two are evacuating the crowd below, and I'll go up to intercept those aliens. After saying that, Natasha leapt up to a height of 7 or 8 meters. She directly used her legs on the wall to lift herself up again. In almost 10 seconds, she had jumped to the top of the building and disappeared. Captain America Steve looked at this exaggerated scene and was stunned with shock. Pointing at Natasha, who disappeared on the top of the building, he turned to ask Hawkeye beside him, "Are all the agents now so strong?" He had been frozen for 60 or 70 years, and for more than a year after he came out, he hid in S.H.I.E.L.D. to exercise and recover. I thought that with my physical fitness, after being injected with the super soldier serum, my strength would be considered to be among the best in S.H.I.E.L.D. But the opposite is true. Forget about the two flying in the sky. One is a legendary Protoss, and although the other is not weak due to his equipment, he is still an ordinary person. The Hulk that can grow big. Forget it. After people mutate, they have no way to control themselves with such a big hidden danger. There is nothing wrong with being stronger, but among what he considered an ordinary 3-person group, this Natasha was also so perverted. Judging from the previous operation, it should be no problem for the opponent to hit him with one hand. Thinking of this, he turned to look at Barton at the end. Barton seemed to understand the meaning in his eyes. "Don't look at me, I can't get up." After speaking, Barton held his bow and arrow and ran towards the panicked people who were fleeing in all directions. Upon seeing this, Captain America breathed a sigh of relief and followed. Mid-air, the first few dozen Kirita soldiers who came out have been eliminated by Tony. He looked at Thor, who was following behind. Pointing at the Leviathan beast flying out of the space door. "Hey, little electric baton, do you want to try giving this thing an electrotherapy treatment?" Thor narrowed his eyes and glanced at the other party. "Certainly, but I have to correct you. I'm the god of thunder, not some little electric baton." After saying that, Thor clenched the hammer in his hand and rushed towards the Leviathan beast. Just after flying less than 10 meters away, Thor felt his head hit something, and his whole body almost rolled out under the force. Fortunately, he stabilized his body before raising his feet to the sky. After he controlled his body to calm down, he saw Zuemo standing in front of him. And it was Zuemo's palm that had just pressed down on his head and stopped him. Uncle Zu, the god of thunder, who was originally going to call Zuemo, thought of Odin's warning to him when he was in Asgard, so he finally forced himself to call him uncle. Zuemo smiled when he heard the other party's name. "You two go downstairs and leave this to me." "But, Tony," and Thor answered in unison after hearing Zuemo's words, and then turned and flew downwards. Tony knew Zuemo's strength. After all, even Magneto listened to him and was dispatched by him at will, so his strength should obviously be above Magneto. Thor's idea was even simpler. Before he set out from Asgard, Odin had sternly warned him more than once that he should obey Zuemo's orders. After arriving on Earth, someone who could be valued by the God King Odin must be strong. It was right to listen to the other party. The two side flew by side downwards. Tony didn't react until this time. "Wait, what did you call Zu just now?" "None of your business." Hearing the other party talking about something, Thor said something to him and accelerated directly to the roof. Seeing the two people falling, Natasha was puzzled. You two. Don't worry, there's this uncle from Asgard Thor up there, it's no problem. Tony said loudly, furious. You. Hearing his words, Thor was so angry that he almost went berserk. But after thinking about it, he realized that what the other party said was true. He happened to look up and saw Loki standing on the top of the opposite building, looking at the sky with an intoxicated look on his face. He immediately flew up, and a huge chain of lightning shot out from Thor's hammer. Loki, you traitor. In mid-air, Zuemo watched the two leave, turned his head, and looked at the Leviathan beast that had already pounced on him. He stretched out his right hand and transformed into a giant hammer again. Get out. The hammer directly smashed the head of the mechanical beast into pieces. The Leviathan beast, which lost control, fell to the ground. He took back the giant hammer and looked up at the space gate that was still pouring out Chirita soldiers. Zuemo spread his hands. Countless black vines emerged from his back. Star-devouring vine, bloom. Chapter 234. Don't damage my battleship. After more than 2 years of exchange, the star-devouring vine showed its power for the first time. After completely absorbing the ore of a planet. The star-devouring vine is only one step away from breaking through to the universe level. You only need to spend points to exchange the ore ratio required for its advancement, and you can break through in a very short time. Now the star-devouring vine has reached the peak of the star level. After fully unfolding, each main vine can be transformed into a vine with a diameter of thousands of meters and a length of thousands of kilometers. The key is that countless secondary vines can grow on each main vine point. If the whole vine is unfolded, it can almost wrap up 1/3 of the Earth's area. As countless vines stretched out, the sky of Los Angeles was completely covered by vines. Those vines seemed to have eyes and entangled all the flying Chirita soldiers. Tiny tentacles stretched out from the vines, and all the metal substances on the Chirita soldiers were absorbed by the star-devouring vine. Finally, those worthless soldiers were carried to the center by the star-devouring vine. At this time, the Soul Devourer has been summoned by Zuemo. After the souls of these Chirita soldiers were absorbed by the Soul Devourer, they were thrown out by the tentacles like garbage. In less than 5 minutes, all the Chirita soldiers in the sky were swept away by the star-devourer vine. The Chirita soldiers in the starry sky saw the scene here through the space gate and froze in their places, knowing that they would die after coming here. How could they still rush over? However, if they don't come, Zuemo will naturally not let them go. The huge vines of the star-devourer vine rushed into the space gate. Just like a huge octopus drilling into the narrow mouth of a bottle, the space gate was almost burst. On the ground, all the Avengers gathered together. At this time, all 5 of them raised their heads, and until they saw the entire body of the star-devourer vine drilled into the space gate, they all retracted their gazes and set their eyes on Thor standing aside. Is this the power of the gods? Damn it, Thor, you never told me you have such a powerful uncle. Seeing the surprised looks from all of them except Tony, Thor felt strangely happy in his heart, but he pretended to be calm on his face. Actually, I just found out too. Dada. The sound of a small electric donkey came from the quiet street. Everyone turned around and saw that it was Dr. Banner riding on a small electric donkey with a pizza shop logo printed on it, slowly driving in front of everyone. He took off his helmet and hung it on the handle of the small electric donkey. I seem to be a little late. It seems that I don't need to be angry and summon Hulk now. He looked up at the sky and then spread his hands. By the way, where is Loki? Natasha turned to look at Thor. She just saw that the two of them had fought in the building next to them, but in the end, only Thor ran back. He ran away. Since we are not needed in the air, let's go and catch Loki first. Okay, everyone nodded, and Hawkeye began to contact Hellpoint in the aerospace carrier. Everyone looked at the screen playing in the air, and the entire operations room was speechless, until Hawkeye's call woke everyone up. Ms. Hill, help us check Loki's location. Okay, it will take about 10 minutes. Hill, who was awakened, called an agent next to him and gave instructions. Then he looked at the screen in the air again, with a trace of worry on his face. Nick Fury walked to her side. Miss Hill, I think we should have a good talk. What? To talk about? Zuemo. After a while the tick came to the lounge next to them. What is there to talk about his affairs? In this way, isn't it considered a clean break? Hill took a sip of the coffee in his hand and said, do you think it's possible to pull him into our shield? Hearing this, she showed a look of understanding on her face. Obviously, Nick Fury saw Zuemo's terrifying strength and once again had the idea of pulling him into shield. It should be impossible. Hill didn't he say it for sure, even though she knew that Zuemo would never join shield. But her current identity is a shield agent, so she naturally couldn't say it truthfully. I can give you the position of director of shield. Nick Fury stared at Hill and said seriously. Hearing this, Hill paused and looked up at the other party. Obviously, the other party knew about the relationship between the two. She showed a trace of unnatural look on her face. After all, it was well known that Zuemo was married. Director, I don't want to involve personal relationships in work. If you have this idea again next time, I will resign. After speaking, Hill got up and walked out. Seeing Hill's back disappear at the door, Nick Fury sighed helplessly. On the ground, the American team, who were waiting for news about the space carrier, saw a triangular fighter plane flying from a distance, slowly landing vertically on the roof next to the Stark building. They looked at each other. Then they stood up and ran towards the direction where the fighter plane landed. After the people running on the ground arrived, Tony and Thor were negotiating with a group of people getting off the fighter plane. From what you said, now is the best time to close the space gate. No, Tony and Thor shouted in unison. Only the two of them knew that the person on the other side of the space gate was Zuemo. Although Thor knew that Zuemo had a special method to travel between Asgard and Earth at will, who knows where this space gate opened by the cosmic cube leads to. If Zuemo can't come back, Odin will probably peel him off if he knows the whole New York and one person. Isn't this a simple question? If that person loses, not all of New York will be buried with him. Okay, Logan, shut up. At this time, a woman wearing a windbreaker and with white hair came up from behind. The X-Men team is in this fighter plane. And the white-haired woman is naturally Storm in the X-Men, or Oro. The other end of the space gate. Zuemo took a look at the huge fleet in front of him. In the center of the fleet is a butterfly-shaped mothership that is hundreds of times larger than an aircraft carrier. The area of the entire mothership is comparable to that of a large city. Around the mothership, countless Chirita soldiers and Leviathan monsters are floating. At this time, all these soldiers looked at Zuemo with vigilance. Zuemo sat on the Soul Devourer, floating in the starry sky, with a smile on his face. As his mind moved, the Star Devourer vine burst out again and spoke. Star Eater, be careful this time, and don't damage my warships and aircraft. Chapter 235. The Chirita fleet is destroyed. After receiving Zuemo's order, the vines of the star-eating vine began to spread crazily. Almost in the blink of an eye, the site was filled. At this time, the size of the star-eating vine was almost as large as half the moon. These vines did not spread out flat, but instead surrounded the mothership in the distance. The other side seemed to be aware of the danger. Various weapons on the mothership aimed at the vines surrounding the star-eating vine and began to attack. However, these weapons hit the star-eating vine, just like scratching an itch, without causing any harm to it. Before the second salvo, the vines had already reached the mothership and penetrated into various holes on the mothership. In less than half a minute, the mothership was completely wrapped in vines. All the weapons on the mothership were closed after a few minutes. The Kiritans and Leviathan beasts suspended in the air were immediately trapped by the vines. Until 10 minutes later the vines began to slowly shrink. Several Kirita people were tightly tied to almost every vine. Soon, these Kirita people were brought to the mouth of the Soul-Eating Beast King by the Star-Eating Vine. The Soul-Eating Beast King was so excited that he almost flew up. He was sealed in the mountains of Talo Village. Every time he spent decades of accumulated energy to open the cracks in the seal to release the soul-eating beast. At most he could only bring back a few 10 souls. It was like eating a buffet. Now, countless Kirita people were lining up, one by one, having their souls absorbed by him. A full hour or so. Soul-eating beasts are constantly absorbing souls. Under Zuemo's urging, it originally absorbed one at a time, but now it has absorbed hundreds at a time, and its mouth has almost never been closed. Fortunately, it doesn't need to breathe, otherwise it would have been breathless long ago. Despite this, facing millions of Chiritans, only less than 1/10 was absorbed. Seeing this, Zuemo didn't bother to wait any longer, and directly took the star-eating vine, the soul-eating beast, the Kirita people and the mothership into the Star Tower. In the end, only Zuemo and a few Kirita people were left in the starry sky. The clothes of these Chiritans are different from the others. Each of them is covered with a robe. It looks like he should be a senior member of the Kirita people. These people were all tied up. Zuemo looked at the people in front of him. Who can tell me where your leader and Thanos are? He walked up to a Kirita at the front. You say %, %. This Chiruta made a chirping sound, pretending to be with me. Zuemo sighed after hearing this. Ever since he transformed into a sledgehammer against the soul-eating beast last time, Zuemo fell in love with the habit of hitting his opponents with a sledgehammer. It was simple and rough, and suitable for a player like him with explosive physical strength. Zuemo shook off the blood on the hammer in his hand, and looked at the second Kirita man. You forget it, you are the tougher player. He muttered something and swung the hammer again, successfully sending the opponent into the world of the second dimension. Zuemo came to the next person. After a moment, there was no longer a complete Kirita person in the entire starry sky. In the end, I didn't find anyone who could communicate. But Zuemo didn't care. The soul gem has fallen into his own hands, and the space gem will be returned to Asgard, which is also in his pocket. The time stone and reality stone ether particles are also on Earth. If Thanos wants to collect all the gems, one day he will deliver them to his door. Think of this. Zuemo flew toward the space door below on the ground. Captain America, Tony, Thor and Natasha all stood guard in front of the instrument that opened the space door. The remaining few people and members of the X-Men had already gone down to help evacuate the crowd. To prevent the Chiritans from coming again. Look at the small black dot emerging from the space door. The expressions on several people's faces changed. Soon, Zuemo appeared in front of them. Zuemo. After seeing that the person flying back from inside was Zuemo, Natasha looked stunned. How did he get out of there? After saying that, she turned to look at Tony aside. Didn't you say that the man above is Saul's uncle? That's right. Tony shrugged. Zu is Saul's uncle. If you don't believe me, ask Saul. After saying that, he looked at Thor aside with interest. Feeling the eyes of everyone on him, Thor seemed to think about it. Asgard itself advocates force, and with Odin's insistence, he couldn't deny it. Since you can't resist, just accept it honestly. Anyway, there is no shame in having such a powerful uncle. He nodded calmly. Yes, he and my father, God King Odin, are sworn brothers. I really want to call him uncle. Hearing this, Natasha touched her forehead lightly, not knowing what to say. At this time, Zuemo also landed on the ground. Those Kirita armies, Captain America. Steve stepped forward and asked. He didn't care about their relationship, he cared about what happened to the aliens. It's been solved. Zuemo nodded, then looked at Natasha on the side and winked at her. However, in front of so many people, the two of them couldn't show their special relationship. The rest is to close the space door. Zuemo looked at the instrument that was still emitting energy and the cosmic cube on the instrument. He walked forward. Ignoring the protective shield around the instrument, he directly reached out to grab the cosmic cube in the middle. Don't drive. Shavig, who was sitting on the ground, saw this and hurriedly spoke to stop him. When Zuemo put away the soul scepter, he had already gotten rid of the control of the soul gem. He made this instrument, and he was naturally very familiar with the outer layer of protective shield. If he rashly reached out to grab it like this, his right hand might not be saved. However, before he finished speaking, Zuemo's palm had easily penetrated the protective shield and grabbed the cube. What? Zuemo grabbed the cosmic cube, turned his head, and looked at Dr. Shavig, who had walked up, and asked, nothing, you continue. Seeing the situation in front of him, Professor Shavig spread his hands and stepped back again. At the same time, He muttered in his heart. How could he forget that this was a pervert who could destroy the armor of the God King with one blow. Seeing this, Zuemo turned back and continued to focus on the instrument in front of him. Tug hard. Successfully took the cosmic cube out of it. After losing the energy supply of the cosmic cube, the instrument slowly stopped running. As the light column of energy supply disappeared, the space gate in the sky gradually closed, until half a minute later, the space gate had completely disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Seeing this, Natasha pressed the headphones on her ears. The danger has been lifted. Stop evacuating the crowd. Repeat, the danger has been lifted. Chapter 236. Loki, I really picked you up. 2 hours later in a Chinese restaurant in New York. Zuemo and all the Avengers sat at a huge dining table. Even Loki was there. But at this time, Loki's hands and feet were all cuffed, including his mouth, which was covered by a metal ring. The director has agreed to return the cosmic cube to Asgard, and Loki will also be handed over to Thor, who will take it back to Asgard for processing. Natasha spoke. In this circle, she and Hawkeye were the only two who belonged to S.H.I.E.L.D. It was natural for her to convey this kind of thing. Everyone had no objections to this and all nodded. After all, this matter was almost solved by Zuemo alone. They were reduced to a soy sauce role in the whole process. Soon, the dishes were served one after another. Everyone looked at the dishes in front of them and didn't know how to eat them. Only Tony picked up a meat bun. Try this, Huaksha Burger. This is what I must order every time I come here. It tastes very good. After speaking, he took a bite with a satisfied look on his face. Due to Zuemo's habits, the two of them had been to this place many times before, so they were naturally familiar with it. After the matter was completely settled, he proposed to have dinner here. Seeing that Tony was already eating, the others were not polite. This looks good. I like this better. Everyone started to move, and after a while, the food on the table was divided among the remaining people. No one brought a plate of food in front of him and began to taste it. Banner, who started late, smiled awkwardly when he saw that there was only a plate of grilled fish left on the table. It seems I seem to have no choice. After saying that, he brought the grilled fish, which was as big as Hulk's palm, in front of him. Zuemo looked at the scene in front of him and stroked his forehead. Forget it, I'm not hungry anyway. This time. Natasha, who was sitting next to Zuemo, saw everyone immersed in the food in front of her and quietly approached Zuemo. Did Nick Fury promise you 2 space carriers? Zuemo took a sip of juice. That's right. What? Is there someone blocking it? How do you know? After hearing Zuemo's words, Natasha looked stunned. Zuemo smiled. Although Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. has the final say, if he is willing to give away something like an aerospace aircraft carrier, those high-level government officials may not agree. Zuemo knows the politicians in the United States very well. He would only find it strange if they actually agreed. Nick Fury asked me to tell you to give him a period of time and he will try his best to fight for it. Hearing this, Zuemo nodded. You also helped me tell him that I will only give him a week. If the 2 aerospace aircraft carriers are not in place by then, I'm afraid the consequences will be much more serious than an invasion by an alien army. After lunch. Zuemo opened the portal and returned to Asgard with Thor and Loki. At this time Thor took off the ring that sealed Loki's mouth. Loki, who had been holding back for several hours, was finally able to speak. He turned to look at Zuemo and Thor aside, with a look of disbelief on his face. Saul, how can you call an outsider uncle at will? I want to tell my father about this. When he was in the restaurant just now, he listened to the conversation between the two. Saul kept calling Zuemo uncle. Although I had shouted before when forced. But Saul is obviously different. The other party is obviously taking the initiative. After saying that, he turned to look at Zuemo again. You bastard, you still dare to come to Asgard? Don't think you can do whatever you want in Asgard by bewitching an idiot like Thor. The words are not finished yet. Thor slapped him directly on the back of the head, causing him to stagger. Don't be rude to uncle. You, Loki, who stabilized his body, turned his head and stared at Thor. It's all the muscles in your head? He cursed angrily and then shook his dizzy head. He had to admit that, although Saul's IQ was not high, his hands were really strong. Zuemo looked at Sol's actions and gave him an approving look. Soon, several people arrived in the Immortal Palace. Loki, who was walking in front with his hands tied, saw Odin sitting in the main seat. His eyes lit up, and he hurriedly ran up, shouting as he ran, "Father, save me," while shouting, he had already run to the front of Odin's throne. "Loki, you still refuse to plead guilty and you are still yelling about something." Odin naturally knew what was happening on the earth. When he heard Loki's cry, he immediately yelled angrily, "No, father." Loki heard this and quickly explained, "I'll talk about my matter later. Now Thor is colluded with a foreigner named Zuemo and calls him uncle. Isn't this serious enough? It's easy to be deceived. How will he lead us as Gar in the future?" The Shen clan. Odin, who was sitting on the throne, saw Zuemo walking in from the outside after listening. At that moment, he hurriedly walked down from the throne and walked towards the distance. Loki, who was below, saw this scene and showed a hidden smile on his face. He turned his head and looked at Zuemo, who was walking behind him. "You bastard!" In front of the great god King Odin. Snap. Loki, who was halfway through speaking, felt another heavy blow from behind his head, this time with much greater force than Thor's just now. He was beaten to the ground directly. At this moment, his eyes became much clearer. It was not until a moment later that he raised his head and shook his brain, which had become a mess. Odin's voice also came from behind. "How do you talk to your uncle?" After scolding Loki, Odin hurriedly greeted Zuemo with a smile on his face. "My brother." Loki, who was lying on the ground behind him, looked at the scene in front of him and was stunned. Is this man really a brother of Odin? Is he really his uncle? After a long pause, Loki felt a sharp pain on the back of his head, which was hit by Thor and Odin at the same time. He gritted his teeth and stood up from the ground, looking at Odin and Thor in the distance. Good. Father and son, right? Even the way and position of hitting are the same, only he was picked up by the other party. At this moment, Loki felt a sense of grievance in his heart, but he soon let out a sigh of relief and endured it. One day, he will make everyone regret what they did today. Soon, the three people who had finished greeting also came forward. Of course, Zuemo and Odin did all this just for others to see. Odin glanced at Loki, who was standing aside and silent, and turned to ask Zuemo beside him, "My brother, what do you think should be done with Loki for the crime he committed?" Zuemo looked at Loki with a smile on his face after hearing this. "The child is still young and ignorant. Just beat him a few more times. I think it's better to hand him over to Hela." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237. 5,000 years old? It's the right age for a breakthrough. You mean? Odin's face changed after hearing Zuemo's words. Loki on the side heard the conversation between the two, and his face was stunned. "Wait, who is Hela?" Seeing the confused looks on Loki and Thor's faces, Odin sighed, pushed back all the surrounding guards, and began to explain. "Hela, she is the sister of you two." As Odin explained, the expressions on the two people's faces gradually became strange. They didn't know until now that Odin also had an eldest daughter, Hela, who was sealed in the underworld by Odin. Of course, this underworld is not the underworld where Sithorn is, but the underworld in the eyes of Asgardians, Helheim. Explain everything. Loki looked panicked. No, he also knows something about the underworld. Helheim is rumored to be shrouded in darkness and cold all year round, and the environment is very harsh. After shouting twice, he turned to look at Odin, ran to steps, and knelt beside Odin. "Father, you cannot banish me to the underworld. I will die there, and you will lose my son. I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it next time. Don't do it." Faced with Loki's begging, Odin remained unmoved. After all, although he is the god king of Asgard on the surface, he is bound by a soul contract and must obey Zuemo's orders and everything. Seeing this, Loki turned to look at Zuemo. "Uncle, you won't do this, right? I promise to obey you in everything from now on." From the conversation just now, Loki also discovered that Odin seemed to trust Zuemo very much and had no intention of rejecting his suggestions. If Zuemo could persuade him, Odin would probably change his mind. Zuemo glanced at Loki. The other party is also a talented person, capable of bending and stretching, and is quite shameless. Just now he was pointing at himself and yelling, but now he could kneel on the ground and beg for mercy. But Zuemo's original intention was not to send him to Helheim. Instead, Hela was released. Hela's strength is already inferior to Odin's. Facing Odin's improved strength, she is no match for him. The only thing I worried about before was that, if the opponent stayed in Asgard, his strength would continue to improve, and the opponent had always been aiming to violently conquer the 9 realms, so Odin sealed it in Helheim. However, with the soul contract, these are not problems. Releasing her would greatly enhance Asgard's strength point, but thinking of this, Zuemo suddenly thought that Odin should not die for a while now, and if Hela is released again, will Thanos dare to come to Earth to collect infinite gems in the future? After all, without the Infinity Stones, he probably wouldn't be able to deal with either of these two people. If he doesn't come, it might not be easy to find the other party. Soon, Zuemo no longer struggled with this issue. Never mind. At worst, just let Odin and the others fake their death. Thinking of this, Zuemo expressed his intention to release Hela. After Odin listened, he pretended to think for a moment and then agreed. Naturally, he also understood that the current Hela could not make many waves. Hear the conversation between the two. Loki stood up from the ground excitedly, glad that he didn't have to go to Helheim. Seeing the other party's happy expression, Zuemo couldn't help but smile. I believe that after following Hela for a while, it will be a bit difficult for the other party to show such happy things. Earth. Norwegian coast. A portal opened, and Zuemo and Odin, father and son, walked out of it. Zuemo looked at the surrounding environment and turned to look at Odin. I understand that the entrance to seal Hela is not located in Asgard, but why should it be located on Earth? It is said that Asgard really likes the Earth. In addition to sealing the entrance to Hela, the other particles, including the incarnations of the Space Stone and the Reality Stone, are preserved on Earth. The Earth is simply a great injustice. Throw any dangerous items to the Earth. Well, Odin hesitated for a moment. Because that's what my father did. Hearing this, Zuemo couldn't complain. Co-author Odin's father Beoer placed the other particles on the Earth not by accident, but by habit, throwing all dangerous things here. Odin also developed this habit under the influence of his ears and eyes. After a while, Odin stopped on the shore holding the gun. With a wave of the magic gun in his hand, a huge magic circle slowly emerged under everyone's feet. In a moment, a portal slowly opened in front of everyone. Is this the passage to Helheim? Thor looked at the portal in front of him and said. Helheim does not belong to the conventional 9 realms. It is the place where the creatures in the 9 realms go after they die, and it is not in this space. After waiting for a moment, the portal was still very quiet, and Hela was not seen. Could it be that Hela has died in Helheim? Loki, whose hands were still shackled, whispered. The rest of the people ignored him. When it came to Odin's level, it was not so easy to die. Obviously, this possibility could not be said to be non-existent, but it was infinitely close to the leader. Suddenly, a sound of trampling footsteps came from the door. Here they come. The faces of several people changed at the same time. The owner of the footsteps seemed to walk very slowly, and the footsteps were not hurried. Until more than 10 seconds later, a woman wearing a black tights and disheveled hair came out. After the woman came out, she saw Odin standing in the distance at a glance. Her expression was stunned, and then endless anger appeared on her face. Odin, old thief, die. With a flip of her wrists, 2 daggers appeared in her hands, and she rushed towards Odin regardless of everything. Seeing this, Thor rushed up with Thor's hammer. Loki behind him looked at Thor, as if he was looking at a fool. There are 2 big guys here, and you don't need to take action. Besides, how could someone who could make Odin so afraid be so simple? Sure enough, Thor rushed forward for less than 5 seconds, and then flew back with a whoosh. Loki quickly dodged, and the other party flew sideways from where he was originally, hit the ground hard, rolled more than 10 meters away, and then gradually stopped. Loki looked at Thor, who stood up from the ground with his teeth bared, and a sense of superiority and IQ arose spontaneously. Opposite, After Hela kicked Thor away, she continued to rush towards Odin without stopping. Seeing this, Zuemo did not go up to persuade Hela to calm down, but silently stepped back a few steps. Being imprisoned for thousands of years, anyone would go crazy. If you go up to persuade others to calm down, you will be struck by lightning. You have to let others vent their anger. Besides, after receiving the cultivation method taught by him, Odin regained his vitality point. His lifespan doubled to tens of thousands of years. According to this lifespan, he is now over 5,000 years old, which is the right age to fight and make breakthroughs. Chapter 238. I really picked it up. As the two of them fought, the area instantly became a mess. This time Loki also quietly ran behind Zuemo. Obviously, he is not stupid. If the safest place here is now, it is next to Zuemo. The god of thunder on the side point. After getting up from the ground, he looked at the scene of the two people fighting in the field. He learned a lesson this time, and turned around to Zuemo and the others, staying here to watch the battle with peace of mind. As the battle between the two became intense, several of their bodies retreated for hundreds of meters again. At this time, the entire open space was full of potholes. Hela did not use magic, but slashed at Odin with a sword, as if splitting the opponent apart could relieve the hatred in his heart. The battle between the two lasted for more than an hour. Looking at the two people who were still fighting fiercely in the field, Zuemo's side. No wonder Odin could only seal Hela. Looking at this situation, if he didn't know the truth, once Hela came out, Odin would have no way to do it. Although he practiced the cultivation method taught by Zuemo, what was now enhanced was only his lifespan. The bonus of the godhead to the body will not be enhanced by the increase in body size. At most, it's just adding physical strength to the original foundation. In a battle of this strength, it can only be said to be better than nothing. Looking at the two of them like this, I'm afraid they won't be able to tell the winner until the evening. Emo didn't want to wait any longer. At worst, they can wait until they have established a soul slavery contract and the two of them return to Asgard to fight slowly. The star-eating vine spread out from his body and enveloped him in the direction of Hela. When Hela saw this, she didn't take it seriously. The sword of the night sky in his hand slashed down on the vines. Clang. After a crisp sound, Hela almost threw the sword in her hand away under the huge force of the shock. But the actions of the vines were not affected by anything. It instantly wrapped around her body. In terms of strength, Heavenly Father level powerhouses like Odin and Hela are roughly equivalent to the strength of ordinary humans from star level to cosmic level. But it is a pity that the 9th level star devouring vine of the stellar level can crush even ordinary humans at the peak of the cosmic level. It is naturally easy to deal with an existence like Hela who has not yet reached the top of the Heavenly Father level. Who are you? A helper invited by Odin. Whatever he promised you, I can pay double. The trapped Hela struggled violently for a moment and found that there was no way to break free. Then she raised her head and looked at the source of these vines. Zuemo standing in the distance. Helper? Not really, Zu. Emo shook his head, then turned to look at Odin and the others. Wait here for a moment. After saying that, he took Hela directly into a huge portal that opened next to him. Regarding the star tower, it's better to be careful. After passing through the portal to a deserted planet, Zuemo took Hela into the slave space of the star tower as the white light completely enveloped Hela. Zuemo took back the star-eating vine. After dozens of seconds, the white light faded. The unruly Hela had calmed down and stood in front of Zuemo with a very respectful expression. Owner. After saying that, Hela looked at Zuemo in front of her with a trace of bitterness on her face. Now she has guessed that Odin should be Zuemo's soul slave just like herself. In this way, her wish for revenge would probably be in vain. After all, no matter who wins or loses in a fight between the two of them, it will be regarded as a loss of combat power for Zuemo. Zuemo glanced at the other party. He can guess what the other person is thinking without reading the other person's memory. If you want to spar with Odin in the future, I will not stop you. The only requirement is that the foundation of both parties cannot be hurt. Hela, who was frustrated at first, lit up when she heard this. If he didn't stop the sparring, he would have the chance to hurt Odin. At worst, he would spar with Odin several times a day. With that old thing's lifespan, he probably wouldn't be able to last more than a few years. Moreover, the strength of Asgardians will be greatly reduced within 3 years when their lifespan reaches the end point. At that time, it will not be easy to hurt the other party. Rather than killing the other person with one sword, torturing the other person every day is undoubtedly more in line with his own wishes. Opposite him, Zuemo looked at Hela's changing expression. All I could think of was saying sorry to Odin. Naturally, he had to repay the debt he owed in the first place. After all, in terms of imprisoning Hela, Odin did something unreasonable. After a while. Zuemo took Hela back to the previous place. Thor and Loki stared blankly at Hela, who followed Zuemo obediently. I can't figure out why the woman who was so crazy just now became like this in a few minutes. Did you give him an injection? Thor glanced at Hela's face and asked Zuemo. Seeing Zuemo staring at him, he quickly explained, there are not those kinds of syringes on Earth. Once injected, people will calm down. When I was exiled to Earth by my father last time, those people in white clothes gave me a few injections. After hearing his explanation, Zuemo put away the murderous intent in his eyes. There is a reason why this kid's IQ is rated as 2. Asgard Palace. Odin has left. Zuemo naturally told him what he promised Hela before, and he now feels a little pressure. According to the speed at which Hela improves his strength in Asgard, if he doesn't work hard, his strength will soon be surpassed by Hela. At that time, I, as a father, will be abused by my daughter all day long. What will it look like? This is naturally one of Zuemo's goals. He is only more than 5,000 years old. After the other party's strength has been improved to the planetary level and his lifespan has increased, his cultivation has become slack, as if he is still in the mentality of retirement. How can this be? He must roll up. Hela stood quietly behind Zuemo, closing her eyes and feeling the comfortable atmosphere of Asgard. Zuemo looked at Loki hiding behind him and said to Hela behind him, I will let you out this time, and I have something else to entrust to you. What is it? Hela opened her eyes and asked seriously. Before Zuemo could speak, Loki, who heard the conversation between the two, came up from behind and looked at Zuemo anxiously. Uncle, I think we can discuss this matter later. Otherwise, just put me in prison. I will never resist. After seeing Hela's cruelty and madness, Loki was very resistant to this matter. Zuemo ignored him. It's him. He made some mistakes. You need to take care of him for a while. You can take advantage of this time to get familiar with the current world. Hela, of course, still has to stay in Asgard. After all, if she stays here, her strength can be improved quickly. I believe it won't take long for her to surpass Odin and become the number 1 in Asgard. Okay. Hela nodded. Although she had no interest in this, since Zuemo had given her instructions, she naturally had to complete it seriously. Seeing that the other party was not interested, Zuemo spoke again to remind her. He is your brother, Odin's son. Hearing this, Hela, who had been uninterested, suddenly became interested. She looked up and down at Loki, whose arms were trapped. Looking at Hela's eyes, looking at him, Loki's eyes widened. No, I picked him up. Chapter 239 Infinite Gauntlet. Listening to the screams coming from the back of the hall, Zuemo smiled and walked towards the location of the Asgard treasury. When he arrived at the Asgard treasury, his purpose was naturally the infinite glove in the treasury. Zuemo had already asked Odin that this infinite glove was not a fake. When the Dwarf King made the glove, he had made a pair. This right hand glove can also bring out the power of the gem. Arrived at the treasury. Zuemo was not in a hurry to take the infinite glove. Instead, he took out the cosmic cube first. The infinite gems were transformed after the death of the goddess of vengeance. To be precise, they are fragments containing the rules of operation of this world. Just like the space gems, they are transformed by the space rules of this world. Holding the cosmic cube in his hand, Zuemo gently squeezed it. The cosmic cube shattered instantly. A sky blue gem slowly floated out of it. Reaching out to pinch the gem, Zuemo felt for a moment as if he was a fish entering the water from land, and all the space fluctuations around him were under his control. With a thought, a portal to any location in the universe can be opened. Not only that, there are a total of 108 essences of space lore. These 108 essences can be divided into 3 categories: teleportation, space blockade and space strangulation. Each category contains 36 essences. In other words, after understanding the 36 essences of each category, these 3 abilities can be used. Point of course, this is just a big category. As for the various abilities contained in it, there are too many. Point just like opening a portal. This is an ability under the category of teleportation, and his body's innate ability, space freezing, is a variant ability in space blockade. Point the shattering of space he practiced before is an ability under the category of space strangulation. Point in terms of the number of immortal crystals currently absorbed by the Beast King, and the lore fragments contained in it, the essence he has comprehended and absorbed is less than 1,000th of the space lore. As for these 3 abilities, there is no way to use them at all. However, Zuemo has a feeling that with the help of the space gem, he can use these 3 abilities at will in this world. Point Zuemo held the space gem, and his heart moved. Point the space in the entire treasure house stagnated instantly. Point this stagnation was different from Zuemo's innate ability, the freezing of space, but it seemed to completely separate the space within this range from other locations. In this case, in this space, no one could use space related abilities to enter and leave. Point. Even if the other party had the ability to open the space door, they could not use it. However, normal activities within this range were not affected. Point when using this ability, Zuemo once again discovered that the space lore of this world was ridiculously simple. Point this is also the reason why these people can easily open the portal. Point if the space of the world of complete laws is an iron plate, the space of this world is like a huge sieve, and it is the kind with huge holes. After putting away the space gem, Zuemo took out the mind gem. The laws are divided into 8 lower laws of gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and light, as well as 2 upper laws of space and time. Among them, there is obviously no such thing as the law of the mind. However, thinking that this thing was transformed from the body of the goddess of vengeance, Zuemo had some guesses in his mind. Point there are 6 infinite gems in total. Point among them, the space and time gems should be condensed from the goddess of vengeance's perception of space and time. The mind and soul gems should be transformed from the other party's thoughts and souls, and the power gems are naturally the energy and power of the other party. Point as for the final reality gem, Zuemo is not very clear. He guessed that it might be the condensation of a kind of ability given to her by the universe as the first creature born in the universe. Point there is no doubt that among these gems, the space and time gems have the greatest effect on him. Point with these 2 gems, he can more easily perceive the 2 laws. The deeper the perception of the 2 laws, the faster his beast god clone absorbs the immortal crystal. Point when absorbing the immortal crystal some time ago, he had already found that it was not as he expected, that the faster the absorption speed would be, the opposite was true. The slower the absorption speed of the immortal crystal would be. Point it only took 1 month to absorb 1 in the front, but it took nearly a year to absorb the 8 in the back. Point the reason is very simple. Point it's like putting a puzzle together at the beginning. There is a central fragment, and you are given a fragment connected to it, and you can easily put the 2 together. There are only 4 directions, and there is no difficulty. Point. But when you are given the 3rd piece, there are 6 places to consider, and so on. Point the further you go, the more difficult it is to integrate these scattered fusion rules. Retract your thoughts. Zuemo tried to use the mind gem in his hand. Point he realized that if he wanted to use this thing, he needed to study this aspect. Otherwise, at most, he would be like Loki, controlling other people's minds, and for a short time. Point and this is the role of the Infinity Gauntlet, which can help better control these gems. If the Infinity Gems are compared to guns, using gems alone like this is like some primitive people using guns as sticks. It cannot be said that it has much effect. It can only be said that it is better than nothing. Point embedding it on a wireless glove is similar to helping primitive people open the bayonet on the gun, making the gun possess some considerable power in the hands of primitive people. People like Zuemo who have understood the laws of space use space gems. It is equivalent to having obtained the instruction manual of the gun and being able to unleash the full power of the gun. Point he took the Infinity Gauntlet from the display shelf in front of him. Point slowly put it in your hand. Point just when he was about to install the Mind Stone. Point the Black Death Sword in his body moved slightly. Point the black viscous liquid formed by the Black Death Sword slowly covered the Infinity Gauntlet in Zuemo's hand and slowly penetrated into it. For a moment, the infinity glove seemed to be assimilated and absorbed by the viscous liquid. Finally, the black viscous liquid submerged into Zuemo's skin again and disappeared, and the infinity gauntlet on his hand also disappeared. Holy shit, what are you playing at? Zuemo wanted to cry, but had no tears. What's going on with this thing? It absorbed the infinity gauntlet without my permission. While Zuemo was thinking about the glove on the left hand of the dwarves, the black viscous liquid reappeared on his right hand. This time, after the liquid solidified, it turned into a black streamlined glove. There are also 6 grooves on the back of this glove. Is this Zuemo tried to move the mind stone in his left hand closer to a groove. Wait until you are close to a certain distance. With a click sound, the mind stone was automatically absorbed into the groove. Zuemo tried it, and with this, he was able to control the mind gem freely. Although he could not fully activate it, it was hundreds of times stronger than when he controlled the gem alone. He tried it, and it didn't affect the transformed weapon at all. Moreover, after the weapon is transformed, the weapon and the arm are connected together, making it easier to control. I really found a treasure. Zuemo looked at the gloves on his hands. It seems inappropriate to call this thing the Black Death Sword, he thought silently. After all, this thing has almost nothing to do with swords now. I'll call you Kainhuan from now on. Chapter 240 The Troubled Motherfucker. Zuemo, who had put away the gem, walked out of the treasury. When he reached the back of the hall, he happened to see Hela walking out with an elegant step. At this time, she was pulling one of Loki's legs in her hand. Loki was lying on the ground, looking up at the sky with his eyes wide open. There was no emotion in his empty eyes. He let the other party drag him like this without any reaction. Zuemo looked at the other party who looked like he was being played, smiled, turned around and walked towards the top floor of the Asgard. I learned from Odin last time. The star map he copied when he first came to Asgard was not complete. But it is also true that the star map that can be copied by outsiders at will. How could it be possible to put it in its entirety? Asgard is considered to be the top power in the universe. It is impossible that there is no complete star map of the positions of various forces in this world. After all, he remembered that in the original play, Asgard sent the real gem to the collector after getting it. That is, a cosmic trading place formed by the head of the god, a place that does not exist. Came to a room on the top floor. In the room, there was a device that was roughly the same as the one used to copy the star map last time. Zuemo didn't hesitate and went forward to copy the star map. It took him a full hour to copy the complete star map into the intelligent optical computer. After the copy was completed, Zuemo opened it and checked it. Sure enough, compared with the original star map, the range of the star map is now more than 10 times larger. He searched for it on it. Sure enough, places like the Land of Nowhere, Xander, Saka where the Grandmaster is, the home planet of the Kree. Zuemo even found Thanos' hometown, Titan, on it. Turning off the star map in his hand, Zuemo fell into deep thought. Now there are 6 infinite gems. In addition to the space gem and the mind gem in his hand, the time gem is in the hands of the Ancient One, and the reality gem is also sealed in a space on the earth by Odin's father, Bor. There is no way to get these 2 for the time being. The remaining 2 gems, the power gem and the soul gem, are both on 2 desolate planets in the universe. To be honest, he doesn't know which planets they are. After all, he watched the movie more than once in his previous life. But even if he watched it 10 times, he couldn't remember the names of the 2 planets. The only thing he knew was that if he wanted to get the soul gem, he had to sacrifice his loved ones in the end. There was no way to get these 2 gems for the time being. But Zuemo didn't care too much. Thanos would collect the 2 gems and send them to him. Thinking of this, Zuemo opened the space channel and stepped in. New York. Aircraft carrier, video conference room. The other party protected the safety of the entire New York, so this request is not excessive. Nick Fury roared at the people in the video. Director Fury, we can't pass this resolution. Giving the aerospace carrier to the other party means that he can strike any location in our American mainland at any time. This is something that the country absolutely cannot allow to happen. In the video, a middle-aged man with a mustache spoke. After hearing this, Nick Fury sneered. Your head's full of shit, didn't you see the scene in the sky of New York at that time? If the other party were to deal with you bastards, would it make any difference whether there was an aerospace carrier or not? Like, rap, 2 sentences spewed out of his mouth quickly. Director Fury, please watch your words. You made this impossible promise yourself. You can solve it yourself. After that, the other party hung up the video at the same time. Fuck. Seeing the black screen, Nick Fury turned into a desktop cleaning master and cleared the desktop in front of him. After a few violent gasps he gradually calmed down. Begin to think about the response strategy. According to the current situation, it is obvious that these people will not agree to hand over the aerospace aircraft carrier. If so, the entire government may have to face Zuemo's wrath. He naturally hopes that Zuemo will crush all those bastards, but the fact is that after these people die, America is likely to fall into chaos. These damn politicians. Nick Fury cursed, thought for a moment, and seemed to have made up his mind and walked out. On the island of Death, the bodies of cheetah people and the complete Leviathan monsters were neatly placed on the huge open space. In the corner of the open space. If these are not enough, I still have a lot here, Zuemo said to Emma on the side. This is only a small part. After all, the space on the island is limited, so only these can be placed. He did not intend to waste the bodies of cheetah soldiers. You know, this thing can extract a certain substance that can revive people from its body. Coulson, who died in the aerospace battleship, survived by relying on this extract. This Leviathan beast is a good thing. It is very suitable for conquering other worlds. Once the researchers on the island have mastered the technology, they can start manufacturing it on a large scale. The extracts from the bodies of these cheetah soldiers are used to provide funds. This thing is very attractive to the rich. After all, this Leviathan is like an aircraft carrier. The cost cannot be too low. Some small countries cannot afford it. If they want to manufacture it in large quantities, the funds required will be astronomical. If it can be obtained within the rules, Zuemo does not want to take some extreme measures. As for the cheetah mothership, Zuemo did not take it out. According to the manpower on the island, these projects are enough for them to study and digest for a long time. Even if they are taken out, they can't spare manpower to study again. Should we recruit more scientific researchers? Zuemo muttered in his heart. Thinking of this, Zuemo seemed to have the impression that there seemed to be a young doctor in nanogenetics in South Korea. Even Tony's nano armor was built with the help of the other party. Zuemo didn't remember the name very clearly. When watching the movie, he only focused on the other party's figure and face. He could be poached. Just as Zuemo was thinking about how to dig the other party over, there was a loud noise from the south of the island, as if someone was fighting. Hearing this sound, he and Emma showed a hint of surprise at the same time. If we talk about the most powerful force on Earth now, Death Island is second and no one dares to claim first. This is without taking Zuemo into account. Mutant Apocalypse, Magneto, White Queen, plus more than 100 general level soldiers who usually stay on the island. Even Thanos, who has no infinite gems, will be boiled into purple potato porridge. Who is so desperate that he dares to come to the island to make trouble. As Zuemo's mental power probed in that direction, after seeing the situation over there clearly, Zuemo showed a surprised look on his face. It's him. Chapter 241. The Eternals come again. The southern coast of Death Island. After Gilgamesh punched a junior warrior away again, he turned to look at a man floating in the air behind him. Icarus, there are weird people here. Everyone's power reaches more than 10 tons. Hearing this, the man's face showed a look of levity. Just some trash fish. After saying that, a red light appeared in his eyes, and a moment later, 2 red beams of light shot out from his eyes and shot towards the soldiers, who were waiting on the opposite side. When his eyes glowed red, several soldiers were already on high alert. The moment the red laser was fired, their bodies moved away instantly at the same time. Information about the 2 people appeared on the lenses they wore. Gilgamesh, American citizen, living in California. Eternals, with superpower. Icarus, citizen of England, unemployed vagrant, whose identity is guessed to be eternal, possesses super strength, super speed, and can fly. The combat glasses they wear are auxiliary combat supplies made by researchers on the island and can scan the identity of people in their sight point. The database connected to it not only records information about most people in this world, but also the names of all the characters in the Marvel world that Zuemo knows like Icarus. The system can roughly guess the identity of the other party based on known information point after all point in this world. There are only those who can pose a threat to these general level warriors, even though all those soldiers had moved out of the waypoint. But when Icarus's eyes are released, his head can move point. The two soldiers who couldn't react were about to be cut into two pieces by the laser he fired at them. Zuemo's figure has appeared next to Icarus. Boom. With a loud noise, Icarus body directly into the sky, and the flu laser in his eyes was interrupted. However, the opponent's figure stopped flying less than a few hundred meters away, flew back again, and pounced directly towards Zuemo without stopping. Zuemo ignored the other party and focused his gaze on Gilgamesh below point. Obviously, they wanted to save Tina point with their abilities. It wouldn't be too difficult to find Death Island. After all, soldiers return to the island every month to take turns on duty. Icarus, who was behind, saw Zuemo turning his back and ignored him, frowning. There are a total of 10 members of the Eternals who have come to Earth. He can be regarded as one of them responsible for combat effectiveness. He is undoubtedly the one with the strongest frontal combat effectiveness among them. What the other party did was a naked insult to him. Thinking of this, he speeded up a bit again. Just when he was about to enter within 10 meters of Zuemo, a purple light flashed, and Apocalypse's figure appeared between him and Zuemo. The other party looked at him without any emotion. Caught death. Icarus did not stop, but rushed directly in front of Apocalypse, raised his hand and hit the opponent on the head. However, a purple energy field instantly appeared around Cheyenne-Ki's body. Icarus' fist hit the energy field, causing ripples on it, and was then bounced away by a powerful counter-shock force. Apocalypse's pupilless eyes fell on the opponent's body rolling out on the beach below. The endless yellow sand began to gather towards Icarus. Icarus, who stabilized his body, did not dodge in a hurry when he saw this. Instead, in anger, his eyes glowed red again, and two laser beams shot out from his eyes again, shooting around Apocalypse's body like a shield. Cover the general position. This time the laser did not cause any ripples after contacting the protective shield, but simply disappeared. At the same time, the color of the stands around Cheyenne-Ki became a little more intense. Although Cheyenne-Ki was subdued by Zuemo into strokes last time at Xavier Academy for gifted youngsters, this does not mean that the opponent is weak. After all, the position around him remained intact under the full attack of Cyclops, Magneto and Storm. It is obviously impossible to easily defeat Icarus in front of him. At this time, Huangsha, controlled by Cheyenne-Ki, also formed an encirclement and surrounded the opponent. When Icarus saw this, he moved and quickly flew upwards, trying to escape from the encirclement of the yellow sand. Cheyenne-Ki seemed to have expected this. As soon as Icarus started to move, a purple portal appeared above his body. He had no time to slow down and plunged directly into the purple portal. You must know that Apocalypse's portal ability comes from mutant abilities. It does not need to be opened slowly like magic. It only takes a moment to fully open. After Icarus came out again, he was already in the center of the yellow sand below. This location has been completely surrounded by yellow sand, with no gaps around it. The surrounding yellow sand also rotated rapidly to surround it in an instant. His skin instantly became bloody. In less than 5 seconds, the yellow sand dissipated. Icarus had fainted, and his body was wrapped in yellow sand, and fell to the ground. Boss, how should we deal with this person? Cheyenne-Ki landed next to Zuemo calmly. Without Zuemo's order, he did not kill Icarus directly. Zuemo glanced at the bloody body on the ground. You seem to need to keep changing bodies to maintain your immortality? Cheyenne-Ki nodded when he heard this. This body is strong enough and has an almost infinite lifespan. After obtaining the slave space, Zuemo had removed the slave chips on him and silicon replaced them with soul slavery. there was no need to worry that the other party would lose control. After changing the body point, hearing Zuemo's explanation, Cheyenne-Ki's eyes lit up, and his eyes fell on Icarus. He didn't know about the Eternals, and only then did he realize that this kind of person was perfect for him to take over. Boss, Zuemo waved his hand. If you are interested, you can give it a try. Cheyenne-Ki heard this and showed ecstasy on his face. Thank you, boss. Glancing at Zuemo with gratitude, Cheyenne-Ki took Icarus away. He understood that Zuemo had a secret method to control the opponent's soul, which could completely control the opponent and increase his combat power, but the opponent still gave it to him. Gilgamesh, who was not far ahead, saw that Icarus, the strongest among them, was defeated. He showed a dejected look on his face. Facing Zuemo, he had no ability to resist at all. What do you want? In order to release Tina? Chapter 242. 600 million points. Redeem. Nothing is possible. Zuemo replied decisively, and he was too lazy to pay attention to the other party. Raising his right hand, Kainhuan turned into a glove and appeared on his hand. On the back, a yellow infinity gem glowed brightly. Not far away, Gilgamesh's eyeballs instantly turned black, and he recovered after a moment. However, the other party's face now had a look of respect. Is there an equipment expert among the Eternals who came to Earth? Zuemo asked. Gilgamesh nodded upon hearing this. Go and kill him, then go to the island country and set off fireworks. Zuemo gave him instructions and then asked him to leave. Zuemo didn't have much impression about the movie Eternals. What he remembered most was the equipment expert's confession after the mushroom bomb explosion in the island country. Since he had such pity for those beasts, he went to keep company with them. In the Star Tower, Zuemo began to take stock of this harvest. The first is the 2 infinity stones. The mind stone is okay. The space stone is of great use to him now. He seemed to remember that there was a transcendent power in the quantum realm. The time administration point within the Time Management Bureau. There are countless infinite gems. These gems come from different universes. Judging from the fact that each gem can only be used in this universe, it is likely that the laws of time and space in each universe are different. After all, they are all incomplete laws. There are 108 laws of time and space. Each it is possible that the incomplete laws in this universe only contain a dozen of them, while the other universe contains another dozen or so. Of course, there must be overlapping parts, but this did not prevent Zuemo from understanding the rules. As long as you collect enough time and space gems, you combine the laws inside to get the complete laws of time and space. The question is how to enter the quantum realm. It seems that this is only possible with Ant-Man's equipment. Another way is to wait for the other party to come to your door, but he seems to have interfered in enough plots. But the Time Management Bureau has never come to his door. Is it the function of the system? I think you'll be able to figure it out after you find the Time Management Bureau. In addition to the 2 infinity stones, there are those Leviathan beasts and the huge space carrier. These things are useful, but their effect on me now is not as great as imagined. The one who benefited the most from the Kirita army was the soul-eating beast. After devouring an unknown number of Kirita people, the soul-eating beast has fell into a deep sleep. It is estimated that its strength has been greatly improved due to the huge soul energy. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. These Kiritans were not wasted at all. Their bodies were used to make medicine, and their souls became tonics for the soul-eating beasts. You could also get a lot of points by killing them. Their value is simply squeezed to the extreme. Finally, the most important gain is the points gained. Open the system panel. Zuemo thought silently in his heart. Transparent panels come into view. Name: Zuemo. Age: 23 years old. Power: 3 billion tons. Speed: 8 million kilometers/s. Psychic power: 3 billion tons. Special ability: space freezing points: 670 million points. Level: Stellar level 9. Gene level: 100 times. Clone: Time and Space Beast God. Not bad. After destroying all the Kirita army, he gained a total of almost 500 million points in more than a year. Weird World has also helped him earn more than 100 million points, but it's not enough money at all. The first is that the immortal crystal of the Beast God has been broken, and the pace of improvement in strength cannot be slowed down. Naturally, a few immortal crystals must be exchanged for the beast god clone to absorb. Furthermore, the star devouring vine has reached the pinnacle of the star level, so it naturally needs to be exchanged for metals that can allow it to break through to the cosmic level. These metals alone will consume 80 million of his points. After thinking for a moment, Zuemo made up his mind. Congratulations to the host for redeeming 5 immortal crystals in the star-eating vine's evolved metal ratio, cosmic level. A total of 580 million points have been consumed. Now, he does not need to exchange for other treasures for the time being. Therefore, after exchanging the metals needed for the evolution of the star-eating vine, Zuemo exchanged all the remaining points into immortal crystals. These immortal crystals should be enough for the beast god clone to absorb for a while. After giving the immortal crystal to the beast god clone to swallow, Zuemo went to a forbidden space and took out the metal needed for the evolution of the star-eating vine. His mind moved. The star-eating vine detached from his body and sank directly into the metal that could not be seen at a glance. In the training room, Zuemo sat cross-legged and concentrated. He plans to try again to practice the first tribulation of the 9 tribulations secret code. The contents of the first calamity flowed through my mind again. Taking a deep breath, the energy and mental power in his body gradually merged together in a special way, and finally turned into a kind of green energy. As the green energy in his body accumulated more and more, after this energy filled the veins of his entire body, these energies began to gradually penetrate into the cells of his bones and muscles under strong pressure. The cells in his body began to gradually transform. At the same time, a sense of comfort that seemed to come from the soul spread throughout his body. This is the pleasure brought by the evolution of the life level. Zuemo was not overwhelmed by this feeling, but forced himself to calm down, carefully controlling these energies and evenly infiltrating them into every part of the body. According to the content recorded in the 9 tribulation secret book, this process takes about a day. In this process, the evolution of cells in the body must be carried out synchronously. If the evolutionary pace of any position is not synchronized, it will cause the collapse of the whole body. After all, this is already the evolution of species. It is equivalent to Zuemo's genes becoming a unique individual at every moment. If the evolutionary pace of a certain position is not synchronized, it is like transplanting an organ of an animal into a human body. The most direct result is the collapse of the whole body. In the previous dozen attempts, Zuemo also failed in this step. I don't know how long it has been. The green energy in Zuemo's body has no effect on his body. Seeing this, he showed an excited look on his face. It's done. From the records of the exercises, it is known that this fused energy will lose its effect after doubling the body. In this situation, it is obvious that the genetic evolution has been completed. Zuemo felt it. Sure enough, the body strength increased by nearly double. Open the system panel to check. The strength increased by a full double, reaching 6 billion tons, and the genetic level also reached 200 times. Chapter 243 Symbiote plus Black Widow. More than 200 nautical miles away from the island of Death. 2 aerospace carriers floated on the sea. One of the aerospace carriers was in an empty command room. Zuemo looked at Nick Fury, who seemed to have suffered a huge blow. If you do this, I'm afraid the end will not be too good. He didn't expect that the other party really sent 2 aerospace carriers within the specified time. It doesn't matter, Nick Fury shrugged. After so many years of busyness, it's time to retire. After today, Hill will become the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Zuemo heard this and looked at Nick Fury in surprise. It seems that this incident has a greater impact on you than I thought. This has nothing to do with you. I have promised to do what I have promised, and I should bear the consequences. Fury stood up freely. Okay, I have delivered the things I promised you, but I still want to thank you for everything you have done this time, and successfully saved thousands of families. After that, he turned and walked outside. Looking at the other person's back, Zuemo couldn't help but look up to him. He was able to hold the position of director of S.H.I.E.L.D. firmly, so he still had some personal charm. Thinking of this, Zuemo called the other person. Do you want me to take you away? He guessed that if the other person did this, he would not only step down from the position of director of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he would also face some imprisonment. I appreciate your kindness, but I'm still somewhat confident in dealing with those politicians. Besides, I still have some things to do in the next period of time, and there is no way to leave for the time being. Zuemo nodded after hearing this. He naturally guessed what the other person was going to do. Coulson had died in this cheetah invasion, and Nick Fury wanted to revive Coulson with the extracts from the cheetah corpses. After watching the other person leave on the following ship, Zuemo opened the portal. Thousands of Black Widows walked out of the other half of the Death Island. Now that all the personnel in the 2 aerospace aircraft carriers have been evacuated, some pilots are naturally needed. Almost all of these Black Widows have undergone comprehensive training. They only need some experience to fly this aerospace carrier. But before that, they have to conduct a comprehensive inspection of the carrier. Although they think Nick Fury will not do stupid things like installing eavesdropping and monitoring equipment on it, some necessary precautions are still necessary. After more than a year of training, the weakest of these Black Widows have reached the peak of advanced warriors. More than half of them have reached the level of generals after all. These people are carefully selected, and their overall quality is much better than the more than 500 soldiers before Death Island. In the laboratory, Zuemo stood next to Baron Strucker, looking at the scene in the transparent glass room in front of him. In the room, a Black Widow dressed in black looked a little nervous and stared at the squirming symbiote in the transparent glass container in front of her. She turned her head and looked outside. Seeing Zuemo nodded at her, she gritted her teeth and pressed a button in front of her with a sound of decompression. The glass container in front of her slowly opened. The black symbiote inside jumped out. It stuck to the chest of the Black Widow and penetrated inside. She let out a low cry, as if her body felt some pain. However, after all, she had undergone special training, and her current strength had reached the level of a general, so she just endured it. After a low cry. Next, under the gaze of everyone outside, a set of red battle clothes appeared on the surface of her body. In a moment, it completely enveloped the Black Widow, looking like she was wearing a tights, and her body also increased by 20 to 30 centimeters in height. Evelyn, how do you feel? Baron Strucker leaned excitedly on the glass and shouted inside. The Black Widow named Evelyn raised her hands and looked at her palms in disbelief. This feeling is so wonderful, Zoo. Emo pressed the button on the door. The door opened. Evelyn came back to her senses and walked out of the room. Boss, this thing is simply amazing. You can tell from her voice that she is extremely excited. A week ago, Stark and his team had already mastered the pairing mechanism of these symbionts and humans, but they only started to try symbiosis after getting Zuemo's consent. Of course, this candidate was also selected through voluntary registration. Although these symbionts have all been controlled by Zuemo, they dare not guarantee 100% safety during the symbiosis process. But now it seems that there are no accidents. Soon, Evelyn was taken to the next room by Stark and his team and began to undergo various examinations. Of course, after learning about the weaknesses of the symbionts, they were not stupid enough to use instruments such as MRI. How is it, Zoo? Emo came to Stark and asked. All vital signs are normal. Success, Stark said with great excitement. Half an hour later, on a training ground on the island, Evelyn, wearing a red symbiote suit, stood in the center, surrounded by more than a dozen Black Widows who had reached the level of generals. This was, of course, to test Evelyn's strength after the symbiote. The periphery of the training ground was full of Black Widows who came to watch the battle. With a whistle, the battle in the field officially kicked off. Evelyn, who was in the center, opened her terrifying bloody mouth with her red head, and after a roar, she took the lead in attacking the Black Widow in one direction. Her figure flashed and turned into a residual image. The Black Widow she targeted flew out under great force before she could react. The following scene was simply a one-sided tyranny. In less than a minute, more than a dozen Black Widows around her fell to the ground, and no one could stand up again. As the symbiote on Evelyn's head gradually faded, the face underneath was revealed. After seeing this face, the dozen Black Widows lying on the ground and those watching the game showed incredible expressions on their faces. As one of the Black Widows, they were naturally very familiar with Evelyn. A Black Widow lying on the ground exclaimed, "Evelyn?" She had trained with Evelyn yesterday, and the strength of the two was also on paragraph. Today, more than a dozen of them had no power to fight back in the hands of the other party. This made her feel a little unbelievable. Before the action, Evelyn's identity was not announced, so it was no wonder that these people were so surprised. Looking at the scene in front of him, Zuemo nodded with satisfaction. Evelyn's physical fitness increased at least 6 times when covered by the symbiote point. The original 10 tons of strength reached more than 60 tons. The defensive ability has been greatly enhanced. Point. People of the same level of strength and ordinary light weapons have no way to penetrate the skin of the symbiote point in this way. If you go to another world, as long as you don't meet some people with too exaggerated strength, there will be no problem in protecting yourself. It is time to send them to the heavens and all realms. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Black Widow, Expedition to the Heavens and the Worlds. The symbiotic process went very smoothly. It took only 2 days for more than 10,300 Black Widows to successfully pair up with the symbionts. In a hall, Zuemo looked at the 1,000 Black Widows in front of him and waved his hand gently. These Black Widows only felt a flash in front of their eyes. When they saw the surrounding scene clearly again, they were already standing on an endless grassland. Point. Above the grassland, a huge ball of light emitted a soft light. This is naturally the slave space in the Star Tower. In the past few days, Zuemo has made plans. Divide the 100,000 Black Widows into 1,000 teams of 10 people each, and send them to other worlds to help him earn points. Being in different universes, it is a problem to communicate with each other. Point. After thinking about it, the only way to communicate between different universes is to rely on the secret method of soul slavery. Point. Before these people could react, a full 1,000 beams of light shot out from the ball of light, directly covering all these people in the light. It only took a few seconds for these beams of light to disappear. Zuemo has established some kind of connection with these people through the contract. He was not in a hurry to leave this space. Zuemo took out 1,000 storage rings and distributed them to the Black Widows. These Black Widows are the captains of these 1,000 teams, so they naturally have to bring them everything the team needs. In the storage ring, there are more than a dozen Green Goblin skateboards, a book and some daily necessities. The Green Goblin skateboard is naturally to improve the mobility of these people. Point. After all, neither Venom nor warriors who have not reached the planetary level can fly. Point. The book was specially sorted out by Zuemo. Some things that are useful to him are like the metals needed for the evolution of the star-devouring vine and the treasures needed to configure the nutrient solution. After experiencing the world of Avatar, Zuemo also realized. Point. This world naturally has many treasures owned by the devouring world. Point. Giving them this book is also to prevent the occurrence of treasures in front of these people, but they don't recognize it. Point. And the last daily necessities are simply to prevent the world they arrive at from being a world similar to the end of the world. Point. The supplies inside were enough for the 10-man team to spend several months. After the Black Widows recognized the ring as their master, they felt the space inside and showed surprise on their faces. Anyone who saw this kind of thing for the first time would be amazed at its magic. Point. After everything was done. Zuemo took them back to the hall. 2 hours later, a full 10,000 Black Widows boarded an aerospace aircraft carrier together and disappeared from the sight of everyone on the island. On the deck of the aerospace aircraft carrier, the Black Widows had already divided into teams of 10. These Black Widows naturally knew all about this mission. At this time, they all had excited looks on their faces. They were adopted by the Red House since they were young. They had no relatives or ties in this world. Naturally, they had no resistance to being able to enter other worlds. Instead, they were extremely looking forward to it. Zuemo floated in the air looking at the crowd below. These people will be the main source of his points in the future. After several crossings, Zuemo also understood that if he wanted to get a lot of points, he still had to win by quantity. After all, no matter how strong the villain is, even if he is killed, he can only get hundreds of thousands or millions of points. but people like this are naturally very rare, and the points that can be obtained from them are limited. The ones who can really get a lot of points are those ordinary people. Just like the zombie world, although each zombie has only a few points, but there are enough of them, and billions of points can be obtained in the entire zombie world. This is why Zumo recruited these Black Widows. But the number is relatively small. Zumo has already instructed Emma to start preparing for this, recruiting some merchants from all over the world, and putting them into training. In the future, there will be a steady stream of soldiers sent to the heavens and the worlds by Zumo. Thinking of this, Zumo waved his hand gently, and space doors opened on the deck. His eyes fell on the captains of those teams. Remember what I said: if you encounter enemies that you can't deal with or things recorded in the book, remember to contact me as soon as possible. The worlds he chose were naturally worlds with a time flow rate that was almost the same as Marvel's. Otherwise, if there was something in the world that these people couldn't fight against, Zumo might not even have time to support them. Seeing these people nod, Zumo waved gently. Under the leadership of their respective captains, these Black Widows each entered a portal. A full 1,000 teams. It took more than half an hour to send them all to one world after another. After sending these people away, Emma walked out of the ship tower. She looked at the empty deck. Although she didn't know why Zumo was so keen on dealing with those scumbags, it was not enough to deal with this world alone, and people were sent to other worlds. But she didn't ask. As long as the other party wanted to do it, she only needed to support silently from behind. Reach out and hold Zumo's arm. Dear, there are only 2 of us on the ship now. Do you want to ask some people to come over? Otherwise, this thing can't move with just the 2 of us. Zumo came back to his senses after hearing this. He turned around and smiled at Emma. Don't worry about this. It can't move. We can move it. After saying that, he hugged Emma and flashed to the top floor of the ship tower. Done. Emma's mouth was blocked as soon as she said to stop him. South Korea. Seoul Airport. Zumo, wearing sunglasses, walked down from the plane. After walking out of the airport, he casually threw the business card with his private number that the flight attendant had just handed him into the trash can. He casually stopped a taxi and drove towards the direction of downtown Seoul. It has been nearly a week since the Black Widows were sent away. These people have just entered the new world, and it is estimated that they have just found out the situation in the world for 2 days. Despite this, the points have increased by nearly 20 million. And most of these points have increased in the past 2 days. At this rate, the points brought to him by these 1,000 worlds alone are at least more than 200 million per month. It is enough to supply the consumption of the beast god, to absorb the immortal crystal. It has been 4 years since the awakening system was launched. During these years, he has been either practicing or busy obtaining points. Now, he has enough self-protection ability. During this period, he has also relaxed. For the Black Widow's expedition, everyone on the island served this matter. Most of the personnel have been involved in the research of symbionts and Green Goblin skateboards. In addition to the research on combat mechas, leviathans, the cracking of the Sky City and aerospace aircraft carrier technology, the replacement of Sentinel robots, and the research on the Chirita people. During this period, the shortage of researchers on the island has been very serious. Most of the people on the island came out to look for researchers. Zumo was bored, so he volunteered to come here. If possible, he planned to poach all the personnel in the biological genetic research laboratory that studies nanotechnology. Chapter 245. Dr. Zao Halen. Han River. It is considered to be the 4th largest river in Nambang province. Because it passes through Seoul City, it is considered the most famous river in Nambang Kingdom. The Han River flows through Seoul. Build several artificial islands. These artificial islands range from large to nearly 20,000 square meters, while small ones are only a few hundred square meters on land. Next to one of the artificial islands, Zumo got out of the taxi and took a look at the building. Not far away. Eugene Genetic Research Laboratory. This is the goal of Zumo's trip. In his mind, He recalled the information he had received from Shirley before. The founder of the laboratory is Jizuan Biotechnology, one of the largest consortiums in the South Bank country. The founder of the laboratory is Jizuan Biotechnology, one of the largest consortiums in the South Bank country. Person in charge of this experiment is a young biology PhD named Zhao Halen. The moment he saw this name, Zuemo recalled it. This person is the young female doctor who helped Ultron build its vibranium body under the control of Ultron and Age of Ultron. After experiencing the Ultron incident, he joined the Stark group. Tony's nano armor was made based on the nanotechnology she developed. But now that the Mind Stone is in his own hands, Ultron and Vision will no longer be created. Naturally, Ultron's attempt to destroy the world will never happen again. Unless there is an accident, Helen Zhao will never happen again. Join the Stark group. Zuemo took off his sunglasses and walked towards the laboratory. The artificial island is only a few thousand square meters in size, and there is only one laboratory building on it. It can be said that the entire island is the private property of the laboratory. Half an hour later, Zuemo was already sitting in a cafe on the riverbank. Before coming, he had naturally made an appointment with the other party. After a while, the bell on the coffee shop door rang, and a figure in blue walked in from outside. Zuemo raised his head and looked at the other person. The other person looked to be in his 20s. His long black hair was casually tucked behind his head, leaving only the two strands in the front, parted on both sides of his face. Under the hair, there was a delicate fair face with big eyes and a melon-shaped face. Under the blue slim-fitting study clothes, her figure is well-shaped. However, the other party's face now had a cold look that would repel people thousands of miles away. The other party glanced around the coffee shop and then walked towards Zuemo's direction. It was around 10 o'clock in the morning, and Zuemo was the only one in the entire coffee shop, so the other party could naturally guess that the other party was the person she had made an appointment with. "Hello, I'm Zhao Helen." The other party stretched out his hand to shake Zuemo's hand and then sat down opposite Zuemo. Thank you." She said something to the waiter on the side and then glanced at Zuemo. "Are you the owner of that private laboratory?" Perhaps due to the rigorous character of a scientific researcher, Helen Zhao directly brought the topic to the point without being polite. "That's right, Zuemo nodded, casually took out a document from his backpack and handed it to the other party. "This is the condition I can give. You can take a look first." Money has no meaning to Zuemo now. If he wants, he can bring out thousands of times the total amount of gold and various rare items on the earth. Therefore, he did not intend to use force to solve matters that could be solved with money. Of course, the plan drawn up in the document was only doubled under normal conditions. After all, you need to move to Death Island, and if the treatment is not good enough, the other party is unlikely to agree. This range is higher than normal, but it is not exaggerated. If it is too exaggerated, it will be easily misunderstood by the other party that the person is stupid and has too much money or writes a bad check. Despite this, Zhao Helen on the opposite side also had a look of disbelief on her face after seeing the treatment above close the document. Just at this time, the coffee she ordered was also served. She picked up the coffee and took a sip, then looked up at Zuemo opposite. "Currently, I don't have any tangible results in biological research. I don't know why you would choose me. Moreover, the conditions above are enough to hire a more experienced doctor." After speaking, she looked straight at Zuemo. Hearing her words, Zuemo smiled softly. "So, Ms. Zhao Helen, you are worried, but I have other intentions." Helen Zhao did not speak. When she heard this, Zuemo was obviously right. Putting down the coffee in his hand, Zuemo looked at the delicate face of Helen Zhao opposite him. "Ms. Zhao, you seem to have some misunderstanding. This is not just for you, but for almost all experts in this field in the world. We have invited them, and for those PhDs who have more experience than you, like you said, the conditions we offer will naturally be more generous." Hearing this, Helen Zhao obviously had an expression of disbelief on her face. "Mr. Zhu, are you kidding? Perhaps you don't know how much money is needed to recruit all the experts in this field in the world. I don't think any company in the world can afford such a huge expenditure. Besides, I don't think there is any project that requires so many scientific researchers to work together." When Zuemo heard this. He was not angry because of the other party's suspicion. After all, the other party's guess was reasonable. He took out a tablet from his backpack again, opened the picture on it, and handed it to the other party. I think Ms. Zao should have heard about what happened in New York some time ago. The chitter invasion in New York was too loud, so there was no way to suppress it, so all countries directly announced it. Although nearly half a month has passed, now all the news websites in various countries are reporting about this incident. Zao Halen naturally couldn't not know. She nodded, took the tablet in confusion, and looked up. After seeing the picture above clearly, her face changed. There was a look of surprise in her eyes. The picture showed rows of corpses of chitter soldiers lying on the top. This is, she looked at Zuemo in shock. The chitter invasion ended almost as soon as it began. The total number of chitter soldiers who broke into New York did not exceed 10,000, and most of them were killed by Zuemo's star-devouring vine and collected by him in the Star Tower. The total number of those that actually fell to the ground and were dealt with by Tony and Thor was no more than 1,000. Now these bodies are naturally like treasures, stored in S.H.I.E.L.D., and the rest of the people don't even know the specific appearance of the chitter. However, the general appearance can still be seen in the videos that have been circulated. When she saw these bodies, she could tell at a glance that they were chitter. But she was a little unbelievable. As we all know, every country wants to get this thing. As long as they can study something from it, they can benefit endlessly. But no country or force can get even 1 point in this picture. There are at least thousands of bodies thrown on the ground like garbage. How is this possible? Even if the other party looted the American government agencies, there may not be so many. Looking at Zao Halen's unbelievable expression, Zuemo nodded. You are not mistaken. These are indeed the bodies of Chirita. Chapter 246 Persuasion. Jinjen's thoughts. This is impossible. As a doctor in biological genes, she is naturally more eager to study these aliens. The laboratory she works in is also trying to obtain part of the alien tissue. But obviously, it ended in failure. Even if looked down, Zuemo did not refute the other party, but motioned for her to turn it down. Hearing this, Helen Zao passed her fingers across it. What follows is a video. In the video, it is naturally the researchers on the island studying the corpses of the Kirita people. Watching those people throw away the alien bodies after studying them like garbage and send them for destruction. She hated it so much. Helen Zao had to accept this fact. The alien tissue that the laboratory has tried its best to obtain is just like garbage in the hands of the other party, discarded at will. After watching the video, Helen Zao let out a sigh of relief. Calm down the excitement. Looking up at Zuemo who was drinking coffee opposite the old god, she stretched out her right hand, happy to work with. When Zuemo heard this, he shook hands with the other person with a smile on his face, and then asked, I wonder how many researchers there are in the current laboratory? Hearing this, Helen Zao looked stunned, but in an instant, she understood what Zuemo meant. The other party wanted to recruit all the people in the laboratory to his side. She naturally had no objection to this. After all, these people are all her team members. If they can be brought over, there is no need to run in again. I thought about it in my mind. Helen Zao then spoke. There are currently 12 researchers in the entire laboratory. If assistants are included, there are a total of 46. I'm afraid it won't be easy to take these people with you. After all, the entire laboratory will be abandoned in this way. The plutocrats behind the laboratory cannot easily agree. At this point, her tone paused. You may not know much about the power of the Chibal here. I'm afraid that by then, no one will be able to leave. Zuemo didn't take it seriously when he heard this. You can ask them privately. If they agree, I will naturally have a way to take you away. Of course, the treatment will be the same as yours, and it will be tripled. Helen Zao shook her head. Okay, I can give it a try. At this time, there was a ringing of bells from the direction of the door. A young man with dyed white hair and a face as fair as if he had been dead for several days walked in from outside. He glanced around the cafe and saw Zao Halen sitting in the corner with a hint of smile on his face. Happy. But after seeing Zuemo, his eyes moved. Helen, so you are here. I heard from my dad that you submitted your resignation letter. Did something happen? The man naturally sat down next to him and looked at Zeo Halen with a worried look on his face and asked. Helen Zeo heard the man's voice and saw the man sitting aside without any explanation. A hint of disgust flashed through his eyes and his body subconsciously moved away from the man point, but she still forced a smile on her face. No, I'm just a little tired and want to rest for a while. There's no need to resign. I'll go tell my dad and give you some time off. How about a month? The young man said with concern. Seeing this, Zuemo put away the information and tablet. Now that everything has been discussed, I'll leave first. When the other party is ready, Death Island will naturally send someone to pick them up. When the young man heard this, he seemed to have just noticed someone sitting next to him, with an apologetic expression on his face. Sorry, I didn't notice it just now, but this is. His eyes fell on Zeo Helen. Hearing this, Helen Zeo said directly before Zuemo could speak, a friend of mine, Zuemo. After saying that, she faced Zuemo. Okay, you go ahead and do your work. I will contact you after the results are available. Zuemo nodded, turned around and walked outside. Obviously, the person in front of him should be Helen Zeo's suitor. Although Helen Zeo in front of him is pretty good looking, he is not cruel enough to take a beautiful woman for himself when he sees her. I didn't bother to get involved in their affairs. However, Zuemo was still a little surprised when he heard that the other party had resigned. It seemed that the other party had already made up his mind to leave the laboratory and resign before he came into contact with the other party, etc. When the young man saw Zuemo was about to leave, he stopped him directly. Since we are Helen's friends, it's almost noon, why not have a meal together? No, Zuemo shook his head and was about to leave. The young man opposite stopped him again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Park Jin-hyo. My father is the chairman of Jigsaw and Biotechnology. You won't even give me this face, will you? When he talked about his father's identity, he showed a look of pride on his face. Jigsaw and Biotechnology is one of the top 10 consortiums in the southern Bang country. It is not an exaggeration to call their family a Cheeble family. Based on the status of a Cheeble in the South Bang country, even the mayors of some ordinary cities dare not offend him easily after seeing him. Get out of the way. Seeing the other party blocking him again, Zuemo looked at him calmly. He didn't care who Park Jin-hyo's father was. Not to mention a small Cheeble. Even the South Korean president was no different from ordinary people in his eyes. Seeing Zuemo's expression, Park Jin-hyo's face instantly turned cold. What is his identity? The heir of the top Cheeble in South Korea. He invited the other party for Zeo Halen's face. The other party really took him seriously. If the other party was not Zeo Halen's friend, he would not even have the opportunity to talk to him. However, he turned his head and looked at Zeo Halen and still suppressed the anger in his heart. Are you sure you don't want to give me this face? Give you face? Do I know you and give you face? After saying that, Zuemo directly stretched out his hand to push Park Jin-hyo aside and walked out. Zuemo just used ordinary strength to push the other person away and left without looking back. At this time, Zeo Halen stood up. I still have work to do, so our lines go back first. After saying that, he turned around and left. Park Jin-hyo looked at the backs of the two people leaving. His eyes fell on Zuemo and his face became gloomy. Take a deep breath. Take out his mobile phone and dial a number on it. Jung Hyuk, help me find someone. Seoul Marriott International Hotel. In the room on the top floor, Kim Tae-hee and Kim Jenny stood in front of the window and looked at the scene outside. It's really exactly the same as our world, Kim Jenny exclaimed. Of course it's the same. After all, it's just two parallel worlds. Kim Tae-hee left the window and lay directly on the sofa in the living room. Seeing her lying on the sofa without paying attention to her image, Kim Jenny also turned around and walked up, squatted in front of the sofa, leaned close to her sister's ear, and whispered something in a low voice. What? No. Who did you learn this from? After hearing her words, Kim Tae-hee's face instantly flushed. Alyssa. Looking at the expression on her sister's face, Kim Jenny's eyes turned. I'm not doing this for myself. Think about it, if it weren't for the master, we would have died in that world long ago. Do you think you can still lie here comfortably? It's only right to repay each other. As she said this, she secretly glanced at her sister. Since you don't want to, forget it. I'll repay each other a few more times on your behalf. After saying that, she took out a piece of clothing from the space ring and walked towards the bedroom. Chapter 247 Revenge at the Door. Zuemo just came out of the coffee shop when he received a call from Jinzeni. She told him the room number of the hotel. This time, when he came to South Korea, Zuemo simply let them out. In his previous life, this was his first time here, and he didn't plan to go back in a hurry, so he just let them act as tour guides. After all, they were native South Koreans, and they were very familiar with the various conditions here. He walked to an empty corner outside, opened the space door, and walked in. Jintae and the other two booked a suite on the top floor of the hotel. It has 4 separate bedrooms. Zuemo walked out of the space door and did not see the 2 women in the living room. However, Jinzen's voice came from the bedroom on the right. "Master, you are back." Zuemo turned his head and looked, and Jinzen's head stuck out from behind the door. After seeing Zuemo in the living room, she smiled. "Come here, sister has something to tell you." Hearing this, Zuemo was stunned. Under normal circumstances, according to Kim Tae-hee's personality, if there is something, the other party should come over by herself. However, he did not care too much and walked towards the room. After entering the room, Zuemo found that the light in the room was a little dim because the curtains were drawn, but he could still see everything in the room clearly. Jinjenny was standing next to him. At this time, Jinjenny had pink hair tied into 2 ponytails at the back, and she was wearing a set of Sailor Moon cosplay clothes. The skin on her legs looked even whiter against the black stockings. "You, just..." As Zuemo was about to speak, Jinjenny came up and blocked his mouth. In an instant, the fire in his body was directly ignited. A moment later, Zuemo also found Kim Tae-hee hiding in the bed. The other party looked as if she was asleep, but her trembling eyelashes still exposed the fact that the other party was pretending to sleep. Seeing this, Zuemo was not polite. After a while, the door closed and locked automatically. Until the next morning. The 3 of them left the hotel together under the guidance of the 2. Zuemo spent a day touring nearby Myeongdong, Itaewon, and Namsan. But after a day of sightseeing, he was disappointed. He couldn't get interested at all. If it weren't for the fact that Kim Tae-hee and Kim Jenny were so interested, he would have returned to the island of Death. But considering the performance of the 2 last nights, Zuemo decided to stay. After finishing a day's trip, the 3 of them opened a space door and returned to the hotel. Just walked out of the portal, the 3 of them saw that there were 7 or 8 sturdy men guarding the door in the room at this time. On the sofa, a young man with a pale face who looked like he had indulged himself too much. Who else could it be but Park Zen-hyo. Seeing Zuemo and the other 2 walking out of the space door, the 7 or 8 sturdy men in the room, including Park Zen-hyo, all looked dazed. It seemed that he couldn't believe what he saw. Park Zen-hyo also stretched out his hand and rubbed his eyes. You guys." After confirming that he was not dazzled, he pointed at Zuemo and the other 3 in the slowly closing space door behind him, and his words were a little incoherent. Zuemo saw the situation in the room and understood it instantly. This was obviously to settle accounts with him. He didn't expect that, just because he didn't give the other party face, it was worth such a big fight to block him. It seems that these second generations are indeed a bit idle. The 2 sisters of Kim Tae-hee also saw that these people ran into their rooms without permission, and they were holding knives, sticks and other things in their hands. It was obvious that they were not kind. The 2 of them were not polite and started to cast magic instantly. More than a dozen purple ropes stretched out from the ceiling of the room, tied up these people, and hung them on the roof. Even their mouths were tied by ropes, and they could only make a woohoo sound. Only Park Zen-hyo in the front had his mouth not sealed. After all, judging from the situation just now, this person is obviously the leader of these people. "Who are you, and why did you enter our room?" Before Zuemo could speak, the 2 of them had already started the interrogation work. After a set of procedures, they were more skilled than those professionals. Zuemo saw this, but did not stop them. Instead, he sat beside them and watched them interrogate each other. At this time, Park Zen-hyo had been doubting his life because of a series of strange things. If it weren't for the pain from the tight parts of his body, he would have thought that he had played with women too much during this period and had hallucinations. Seeing his erratic eyes, Jinzeni smiled. I like people who are tough. As he said, a whip rope condensed by magic appeared in his hand and whipped the other person. Kim Tae-hee next to him cooperated tacitly to set up a sound isolating magic circle in the room. A light flashed by and Park Zen-hyo screamed like a pig. A long blood mark appeared on the other person's chest. Seeing this, there was no change in the expressions of Kim Jenny and Kim Tae-hee. After nearly 2 months in the apocalypse, they had already gotten used to this kind of scene. Not to mention a bloodstain. Even if they saw a dismembered body, they could keep their faces unchanged. Don't you want to say it? Seeing that Park Jin-ho was only concerned with screaming and had no intention of explaining anything. She continued to whip him. What she didn't know was that Park Jin-ho was the heir to the Cheeble. From childhood to adulthood, he had never experienced such pain. Under the severe pain, he didn't hear what the other party said at all. It wasn't until he was whipped 3 or 4 times that Park Jin-ho reacted. Speak. I'll tell you everything. Don't hit me anymore. At this time, the other party's face was mixed with snot and tears, and he didn't look as gentle and elegant as before in the coffee shop. This long whip condensed by magic, when whipped on the body, has the ability to amplify the pain. Some people with strong wills can't stand a few hits, let alone Park Jin-ho, the heir to the Cheeble who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Next, he told the whole story. What? Just because the master didn't give you face, you come here to take revenge? Ah. You sick, Jin. Zenny slapped him a few more times without saying anything. Park Zen-hyo cried out in pain. I already knew that these Cheebles think differently from normal people, but I didn't expect them to be so weird. Kim Tae-hee looked at them and came to Zuemo. Master, how do you deal with these people? Zuemo looked at Park Zen-hyo, who was crying out in pain, and the thugs behind him who were silent. It was obvious that these people were not doing this for the first time. Sink them into the river. These people will be a disaster if they stay. Chapter 248 Hydra. Before Kim Tae-hee and the others could take action, Zuemo's cell phone rang in his pocket. He connected the call and Zeo Halen's voice came from the other side. I have already told the rest of the people about the matter, and they are all willing to leave together, but this is only if you can ensure the safety of their families. Okay, just let them wait for 2 days without any worries. After saying that, Zuemo hung up the phone and then dialed another number on his phone. Boss, as soon as the call was connected, the respectful voice of a middle-aged man came from the other side. Yes, it's me, Zu. Emo raised his head and glanced at Park Zen-hyo who was hanging up. Within 2 days, let the Jizuan consortium completely disappear from Nanbang country. Okay, the other party replied calmly. It seemed that to him, it was just a normal thing to destroy Jizuan group, one of the top 10 Cheebles in the southern country. In 2 days. Put the phone away. On the other side of the phone was an American military officer stationed in South Korea. Of course, the other party also has another identity, that is, a member of the Hydra organization. You know, Baron Strucker's status in the previous Hydra organization was not low. After subduing the other party, Zuemo asked him to form a private association with various members of the Hydra organization. Some of them were his subordinates, and some were on the same level as him. After each meeting, Emma, who went with Strucker, would brainwash these people. Become a puppet under her control. Until now, all Hydra branches known to Strucker are now considered subordinate forces of Death Island. According to the forces currently in hand, it would not be an exaggeration to call Zuemo the biggest leader of Hydra now. Although most of the Hydra organization is ordinary people. But the status of these ordinary people in the secular world is not low, and most of them are high-ranking and powerful figures just like Hirin and Bang Point among the officers of the US military. Those with high positions are all members of Hydra Point. As for their power in Nanbang country, it goes without saying Point, after throwing Park Jin-hyo and others into the Han River, Zuemo, who followed Kim Tae-hee and the others for a day of boring shopping, naturally wanted to recover some interest. So that I don't have to wander around in boredom tomorrow. Zuemo tried his best to prevent the two of them from wandering around again tomorrow. The next 2 days almost all the news in the South Bank country has become a special event for the Jizuan Foundation. First of all, Park Jin-ho, the son of the president of the consortium, disappeared. Then, before they could find the other party, countless negative news about the consortium broke out. As one of the top 10 consortiums in South Korea, Jizuan Group is involved in a wide range of industries. Architecture, beauty, electronics, almost covers all aspects. First, the real estate company under Jizuan Group was exposed to hire gangsters, to harass and intimidate residents, in order to develop real estate. Then there was the plastic surgery company. After patients who failed plastic surgery came to make trouble, the group hired murderers to kill people. Endless negative news almost drowned Jizuan Group. At the same time, people from taxation, fire protection and other departments began to inspect various companies under the group. For a chaebol group like this, there may be no problems in other aspects. But when it comes to taxation, if you really want to investigate, almost none of them will be without problems. For a time, all branches of Jizuan Group were sealed due to various reasons, and all the group's funds were frozen. CL Itaewon District at the eastern foot of Namsan Mountain in Yongsan District. Due to the beautiful environment of this area and the fact that it is located in the business circle of Seoul, it is known as the top luxury residential area in South Korea. In a certain villa in the area covering an area of more than 1,000 square meters, a middle-aged man in a suit listened to the shutdown sound of his mobile phone. With an angry look on his face, he slammed the mobile phone to the ground. As if this was not enough to relieve his anger, he swept the phone in front of him with his hands. The desktop is cleared. In an instant, the entire room was in a mess. Zibber, these damn bastards. When taking money, each one is more active than the other, but when something happens, they all act cowardly. Hear his angry roar. A tall woman standing nearby, who looked to be no more than 20 years old, walked up cautiously. The woman was wearing a professional skirt and black stockings. She had a pair of straight and slender legs. Her hair was combed into a ponytail hanging behind her head. Her fair and smooth face and delicate facial features were comparable to those of a member of a girl group. President, please calm down. As if she was very afraid of the man, the woman cautiously tried to persuade him, but her words seemed to completely ignite the man's anger. I'll kill you asterisk. The angry man walked out from behind the table and kicked the woman to the ground. It was a flurry of punches and kicks. I let you calm down. I'll let you. The woman seemed to be used to this situation. She lay motionless on the ground, her hands tightly protecting her head, not daring to resist at all. It wasn't until the fight lasted a full 5 minutes that the man stopped panting. At this time, the woman on the ground had fainted. Taking a deep breath, the man sat back on the chair behind the desk. The man was none other than Park Jin-ho's father, Park Seok-hyun, the current president of the Jahyun Group. He naturally understood that someone was targeting the Jahyun Group. And this person's power was not ordinary. Otherwise, those officials who had interests with the group would not even answer his phone calls in this situation. He couldn't think of how to break the situation, but he was not too panicked. At most, he would lose some interests. In the past few decades, this kind of thing is not the first time. As one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea, the entire conglomerate has almost been involved in all aspects of South Korea. If they are forced into a hurry, the impact on South Korea will be no less than a major earthquake. What he needs to think about now is how to minimize the losses. Just as he was lost in thought, the door was kicked open. A prosecutor rushed in from outside with several policemen. Seeing this situation, Park Seok-hyun slammed the table and stood up. What are you doing? For no reason. Before he could finish his words, several policemen standing behind the young prosecutor took out their pistols and emptied the magazines without saying anything. After a burst of dense gunfire, Park Seok-hyun had already fallen in a pool of blood, his eyes wide open, still with an expression of disbelief. The people who rushed in, as if they had rehearsed countless times, began to set up the scene skillfully. A police officer took out a pistol from a bag in his pocket, put on gloves, took out the gun, put it in Park Seok-hyun's hand, then held the other's hand, raised the gun, and pointed it at the arm of the young prosecutor. "Sorry, Prosecutor Kim. After you recover from your injuries, you will be promoted to Deputy Director of the Procuratorate." Chapter 249 Traffic Accident in the Air. Island of the Dead. A private jet landed slowly from the sky. A moment later, a group of people got off the plane, led by Zuemo and Zeo Halen. After the Jizuan group was completely destroyed, the group had been taken over by an organization affiliated with them. In this case, bringing all these researchers here will naturally no longer be a problem. Drive. Zeo Halen, you will all be living on this island for a long time to come. Emo looked at the other party's eyes looking around and said. Zeo Halen glanced around, with a satisfied look on his face. The scenery here looks nice, I really like it. As long as you like it. After saying that, Zuemo led them towards the waiting car below. These people who came here this time also brought their families with them. After all, they will stay on this island most of the time in the future, which is almost equivalent to settling on the island. After handing all these people over to the remaining Black Widows, Zuemo was about to leave, but was stopped by Zeo Halen from behind. "Can you just take me to the lab?" Hearing this, Zuemo looked stunned. It seemed that the other party was also an impatient person. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded. "Of course, but don't you need to go to the accommodation assigned to you to clean up first?" Zeo Halen's parents had passed away long ago, and he was now alone. Zuemo had already learned this when he was on the plane. "There's nothing to deal with." She patted her backpack. It was only then that Zuemo discovered that unlike the large and small bags that the others brought, she came here with only a backpack. Judging from the size, it could only hold 2 pieces of clothes at most. Seeing this scene, he also showed a surprised look. "You only brought this little stuff?" In his impression, most women would like to move their entire home with them, even if they go out for a few days, let alone moving. It is rare even among men to carry only one backpack. Otherwise, didn't you say before that everything is provided here, Helen? Zeo had a matter-of-fact expression. "All right, Zoo." Emo nodded and immediately took out an aircraft similar to a motorboat from the space. In front is a driving position, and behind is a platform about 1 square meter in size. This thing was naturally contributed by the Kirita people. There were almost countless of these things in the Star Tower. He simply took out a small part and used it as a means of transportation on the island. Zuemo sat in the driver's seat in front. Turning around, I discovered that Helen Zeo was standing there, looking up and down on the aircraft. "What are you doing standing there? Why don't you come up quickly?" "Oh well." After hearing Zuemo's reminder, Zeo Helen carefully walked to the platform behind and sat down. Zuemo started the aircraft. After a slight sound, the aircraft slowly flew into the air. Feeling the hair floating and the distance from the ground getting farther and farther, Helen Zeo showed excitement on her face. "I know this thing. It seems to be the vehicle of those aliens." "That's right." Zuemo controlled the aircraft and came directly to the research center on the island. Just about to land in front of the research center, then a figure stepped on the Green Goblin's skateboard and rushed out of the side window, rushing directly towards them. "Get out of the way." Raven's voice came from the skateboard. When Zuemo saw this, his face darkened. They were originally located outside the window of the building, and coupled with the speed at which the opponent flew out of the window, it was already too late to get out of the way. Seeing that the two were about to collide, Zuemo's mental power surged out, and the Green Goblin's skateboard and aircraft instantly froze in midair. "Ah!" A scream came from behind him, and Zeo Halen's figure flew directly from Zuemo's head under the inertia. On the other side, Raven was the same. Seeing this, Zuemo sighed, and then his figure flashed. When he reappeared, the two of them were already held in his arms and slowly fell to the ground. Being hugged around the waist and his whole body pressed against Zuemo. A blush appeared on Zeo Halen's face. However, in midair, she still subconsciously grabbed Zuemo's clothes with her hands. The chest subconsciously left a gap with Zuemo. Raven on the other side is much calmer in comparison. Now that her strength has reached the warrior level, there will be no danger, even if she falls from such a height. But after seeing Helen Zhao on the other side, her eyes flashed, and a mischievous smile appeared on her face. He also imitated Helen Zhao, and stretched out his arms to hug Zuemo Point, but unlike Zhao Helen, she directly stretched out her arms to hug the two of them, stretched her hands directly behind Zhao Helen, and hugged them hard. Zhao Helen only felt two hands on her back pinch hard. His body instantly pressed tightly against Zuemo's body. Although Ruben had tried his best to restrain his strength, the power still almost made Helen Zhao breathless. At this time, she had only one thought in her mind. It's going to be so crowded. Feeling surrounded by softness, Zuemo instantly noticed Raven's movements and looked at Raven, but Raven winked at him obscurely, and even his face instantly changed into Zhao Helen's appearance. Fortunately, because Zuemo was in the middle of the two, he blocked his sight, and coupled with the shyness, Zhao Helen did not notice the scene here. Zuemo was also a little speechless. When he saw this, however, he was in midair, and the main person Zhao Helen was right next to him, so he couldn't expose the other party. Although this feeling was not bad, Zuemo still landed on the ground quickly. At this time, Raven had naturally returned to his original appearance. It was not until he glared at Raven fiercely that the other party seemed to be reluctant to let go of the hands that tied the two of them. It was not until this time that Zhao Helen separated from Zuemo, breathing in fresh air and facing Zuemo with his back, rubbing the sore parts with his hands obscurely. After a light cough, Zuemo turned around and looked at Raven, who was standing aside as if nothing had happened, and began to scold him. Didn't I already say that when flying on the island, the speed cannot be too fast? Raven seemed to know that he was in the wrong, and he bowed his head and admitted his mistake. Seeing that the other party had a good attitude to admit his mistakes, and there was no problem, he did not investigate further. He turned around and spoke. It's just right. As a punishment, you will take this new doctor, Zhao Helen, to get familiar with the laboratory. Okay. Raven agreed neatly. After introducing Raven to Zhao Helen, Zuemo's figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Seeing the other party's figure disappear, Zhao Helen suddenly reacted and looked at Raven beside him with a dull face. No, did he just take us flying in the sky? Seeing the other party's expression, Raven smiled and comforted. Of course, there are too many things on this island that are beyond common sense. You will get used to it after a while. Come on, I'll take you to get familiar with the place where you will work in the future. After saying that, she led the other party into the building next to her. Chapter 250 Transformers World. That night, Zuemo was sitting on the rooftop of the second floor of the villa when a figure jumped up from below the villa. It was Raven, whom he met during the day. You are breaking the law by breaking in without the owner's permission. Do you know that? Putting down the teacup in his hand, Zuemo felt a comfortable sea breeze blowing on his body and said teasingly in a lazy tone, "Huh, you want to talk to me about the law?" Raven replied with a smile. Taiwan Novel Network. It just so happens that I'm best at legal issues. Zuemo turned his head and squinted his eyes. At this time, Raven had turned into a pioneer in legal affairs, wearing a professional suit and high heels, and holding a code in his arms, but due to the exaggerated curves, the code was tilted at a 45-degree angle. Wait, don't give me that. Ah, don't you like this? Raven's face showed a tangled look, and she crossed her arms and thought for a while, and a look of sudden realization appeared on her face. I understand. After saying that, her body changed for a while, and finally turned into Zhao Helen's appearance. The only difference is that her very conservative clothes have become extremely revealing. What are you doing? Seeing this scene, Zuemo's half-closed eyes widened directly. Why, this is a 1-to-1 replica. Master, don't you want to try it? Hearing this, Zuemo's heart beat faster. Raven's copying ability allows her to change into the appearance of other people at will. But for those who have not had contact and only seen photos, the places they can see can naturally become exactly the same. As for the sound and the invisible places, they can only rely on guesses, but those who have had physical contact with her are different. Relying on the mutant ability, she can instantly get the other person's Body data. Even the hair can be done exactly. This is the so-called complete 1-to-1 replica. Obviously, during the daytime contact, she had copied Zeo Halen's body sample. Now, she and Zeo Halen have no difference, except the soul in their bodies. Seeing Zuemo's expression. Raven showed an expression of as expected on his face, and walked forward directly, pulling Zuemo into the room. Zuemo was dragged in by the other party in a daze. He knew in his heart that he was controlled by the other party again. But he didn't feel any regret. Facing Raven, which man cannot be controlled. In the next few days Zuemo stayed in the practice room of the Star Tower, holding the space gem to comprehend the space law, and occasionally went to the island outside to relax. This day. Zuemo, who was in the practice room, suddenly opened his eyes, flashed into the villa on the island, then opened the portal to a certain world and walked in. In a certain world. 10 Black Widows stayed in a villa in the suburbs of Santa Ana, with a look of fatigue after the war on their faces, but the excitement on his face could not be concealed. I have informed the boss. I believe it will not be long before the boss comes to this world. Evelyn held a black box in her hand and said with a smile to several Black Widows under her, she is the captain of the Black Widow team in this world. After coming to this world, they began to hunt down the villains in this world according to Zuemo's request. At the beginning, everything went very smoothly, even without the help of the symbiote's amplification. The weakest in their team reached the level of a primary warrior. The strength exceeds 8 tons for ordinary people. It is like a little Superman. It is effortless to deal with those gangsters. After all, with their reaction speed, it is not easy for bullets to hit them when they concentrate. If they are wrapped in the symbiote, killing them is like killing chickens. But just a few days ago, things changed. On the TV news, they actually saw a scene of Transformers fighting more than 10 meters high. It was not until then that they understood. This world is the world of Transformers. In the Marvel world, there are Transformers movies. They naturally know a lot about Transformers. After learning this, the first thing they thought of was the treasure of the Allspark. With this thing, they can create an endless army of robots. I believe that for Zuemo, this thing can also be of some use. Do it as soon as you think of it. Under the leadership of Evelyn, the team's 10 Black Widows came to the place where they compete for the Allspark, the Hoover Dam, and they arranged it here in advance. Finally, taking advantage of the critical moment of the competition between the Decepticons and the Autobots, they snatched the Allspark. Then, with the help of the Green Goblin skateboard, they successfully escaped from the pursuit of the other party. Until this time, Evelyn notified Zuemo. As her voice fell, a space door opened in front of Evelyn, and Zuemo's figure walked out from it. Boss. Seeing Zuemo appear, Evelyn's eyes lit up. She didn't expect that within 10 seconds of notifying the other party, Zuemo had already appeared in front of her. In this way, no matter which world they were in, their safety would be greatly improved. After all, unless they encounter opponents who are so strong that they have no ability to resist, it is not difficult to hold on for more than 10 seconds. As long as Zuemo arrives, they will be safe. After the Battle of New York, they have some understanding of Zuemo's strength. Just the endless tentacles that cover the sky and the sun, in her opinion, are like the Transformers in this world. 10,000 or 8,000 of them are probably just for show. When Zuemo came out of the space gate, he saw that there were 10 Black Widows around him, and he was sure in his heart, what's going on? He looked at Evelyn opposite, and asked. The other party just passed the information, and asked him to come to this world. Zuemo did not ask in detail what happened. Hearing Zuemo's question. Evelyn hurriedly narrated what happened after they came to this world. Transformers, Spark Source, Zuemo's eyes lit up. Then he took the box handed over by the other party and slowly opened it. Inside the box was a regular silver cube, and each face of this cube was engraved with some complicated patterns. Reach out and take out the fire source. After closing his eyes and feeling it, Zuemo felt that it contained endless special energy. Without too much research, Zuemo put it into the Star Tower. Seeing the fire source disappear in Zuemo's hand, Evelyn was stunned. She had tried it before, but for some reason, this thing could not be put into the storage ring. But thinking that the storage rings were given to them by Zuemo, it was normal for him to have a treasure higher than the storage ring. Well done. He praised Evelyn and the others. At this time point a curvy girl figure came down from upstairs anxiously. Oh no, I just saw a little robot get out of my bag and escape from the window. Zoo. Emo turned his head and looked point. After seeing the other person's appearance clearly, his eyes moved point. This woman is none other than Makila, the heroine of Transformers 1 point, but now is not the time to appreciate the other person's figure. It was obvious that the one who escaped from her should be Chaos, the Decepticon who was responsible for collecting intelligence. Now that their location had been exposed, the Decepticons might be on their way here. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.